First up is A Murder of Quality, which is the second novel by John le Carre, published in 1962. It features George Smiley, the most famous of le Carre's recurring characters, in his only book set outside the espionage community.
A Murder of Quality, adapted for radio by Frederick Bradnam, from a novel by John le Carre, with David Bird as George Smiley, Joan Sanderson as Miss Brimley, and Patrick Barr as Terence Fielding. A Murder of Quality.
So, it really is you, Brim. Come on in.
Did you think there was another female called Brimley about to enter your life? Oh, what a nice room, George.
Yes, I suppose it is. Only it must be years since we last met.
It is. 10 years.
10 years. And no doubt you could tell me exactly when and where.
I could, but I won't.
Oh, do sit down, Brim.
May I sit here?
Please. Now tell me, how did you find me?
The telephone directory. Under Smiley. George Smiley.
Ah.
You're the only Smiley G.H. in the book. Then I telephoned first to make quite sure you weren't in, but I was able to leave a message which I assume you got.
Yes. Oh, simple, isn't it? The obvious I always forget. Will you have a whiskey and soda? You still drink it?
I do, and I will.
Fine.
You've left the service for good?
For good? I wonder. One never knows with intelligence work, I find.
No.
And yourself, Brim.
I edit a weekly paper.
Ah, and trust, no doubt, that you have left the service for good.
Exactly.
Yes, I had another spell some time back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Intelligence is all very different now. Ideas are different. People are different. The Steeds, Jeopardies, Fieldings aren't about anymore. All gone. Is that the right amount of soda?
Thanks, that's just right.
Your health, Brim.
And yours, George. Fielding. Adrian Fielding had a brother. He teaches at Cairns.
Yes, that's right. Terence Fielding, a housemaster. That is, if he hasn't retired.
No, he retires this half, whatever that means. It was in the Times some weeks ago.
You seem well informed.
Not well enough. Tell me about Cairns School, George. Did you go there?
Heavens, no.
But you know about it.
Yes, I know about it.
Is it as bad as it sounds?
Absolutely. Not that it always was. It didn't become really fashionable until about 100 years ago, and it was founded by Edward VI in 1550, I think. I've never really understood why some schools become fashionable with the rich, grow like Cairn into bastions of snobbery and privilege.
It's generally a headmaster. I mean, there's one head who lifts the school up out of the rut, and the right people get to know about him, send him their boys, and the tradition begins.
Well, there was a man in the 1850s, the master. Cairn calls the head the master. They don't have teachers. They have housemasters, house dons, and ushers.
And half?
A half is a term. They have only 2. What else?
Cairn itself. I know it's a town in Dorset, but what's it beside?
Well, I suppose the school is the town. The playing fields and the staff houses encircle it. It's miles from anywhere, you know, Brim. Beautiful countryside, but quite isolated. Has little to do with the world most people live in.
One would have to fit in.
Or get out, I imagine.
Yes. But that wouldn't be easy for the wife of a house don, would it?
What's the problem, Brim?
Well, I had a letter sent to my paper the other day from the wife of the man who's teaching at Cairn. They haven't been there long. They're called Road, without the H.
I see. Oh, what sort of letter?
I'm a ridiculous spinster, I know, but it's worried me, and I knew you were the best person to come and see about it.
Well, you'd better read the letter to me, Brim.
All right. It's addressed from North Fields, Cairn School, Dorset, and dated the 7th of February. Dear Miss Fellowship, I don't know if you are a real person, but it doesn't matter. You always give such good, kind answers. There's something very wrong here. I don't know if he's really plotting to... I can't write the word, but I feel as if I'm dead already. Do you understand? It's this place. It's done something to him so that he hates me. No, it's not just my imagination, and I really am perfectly sane and normal. But I'm frightened of everything. of what he's thinking and what he might do. And now the long nights are coming. Please write and tell me what I should do. I hope you don't get many letters like this. Yours faithfully, Stella Road, Mrs. Nay Glaston.
He is the husband, we must assume.
Yes? It can't really be anybody else.
And you're Miss Fellowship.
Yes.
Tell me, my dear Brim, what exactly is your paper, and how did you get onto it?
It's called The Christian Voice, and it's a nonconformist weekly newspaper founded in 1903 by old Lord Lansbury. I'm its editor. It's very much a family affair. The same families take it now as did in 1903. The Lansbury we know is the son of the founder. He offered me the job after our outfit was thinned down in the 50s.
Oh, yes, I remember now. And why do you take Mrs. Rhodes seriously? You've had other letters of the same order?
No. Only one for a Kitchen Hints competition, and a note from her last year saying that her husband had been taken on to the teaching staff of Cairn School. We printed the news. The point is, George, she's a Glaston.
What is a Glaston?
Well, they've been readers of The Voice since it started. The Glastons are part of our magazine, one of the few hundred families who form our establishment.
So you take her letter seriously?
I must. I know the Glastons are as down-to-earth as you could wish, Stella included. I don't think she's likely to be suffering from delusions of persecution.
Well, what are you going to do?
Write to her. Ask her to come and see me. You see, I have the idea that Stella's husband isn't the usual Cairn type. The product of a grammar school, red brick and all that.
Yes. And Stella Road wouldn't be the type, would she? I doubt whether Cairn has ever had a nonconformist wife.
Road himself is also.
Yes, he would be, of course.
So I shall write to her. And if that doesn't help, well, I wondered, perhaps you could contact the man Fielding for me.
Well, I have met him. Of course I would, but...
What's Fielding like?
Terence. He's not quite the man his brother was, you know. In his late 50s now, a big man with a fine head, rather flamboyant, a superb natural actor.
Is he married?
He's not the marrying type.
Ah.
He's very intelligent, of course, and very vain.
Have you met any of his colleagues?
Well, Anne knew a housemaster and his wife, Charles and Shane Hecht. I don't remember meeting them ever. I think they were typical of Cairn and quite awful.
Of course, things aren't at all the same at Cairn these days. I remember before the war when Charles inspected the corn of Whitehall.
Ah, yes.
We don't do that kind of thing now, do we? Of course, I've nothing against Mr. Iredale as commandant. Nothing at all.
No, he's a good chap, Iredale, when all's said and done.
And his wife's such a nice person. Don't you think, Terence?
Oh, I don't know, Shane. A bit overdressed for my taste.
I know what you mean. I wonder why they can never keep their servants. I hear Mr. Road will be helping out with the corps next half.
Poor little Road. Running about like a puppy trying to earn his biscuit. He tries so hard. Have you ever seen him at school matches?
Well, he ought not to try quite so hard. Do you know, Terence, he'd never seen a game of rugger before he came here? It's all soccer at grammar schools, I believe.
Is it? Do you remember when he first came, Charles?
Oh, yes, quiet as a mouse.
It was fascinating how he lay very low, drinking us in. The games, the vocabulary, the manners, everything. Then one day, it was as if he'd been given the power of speech, and he spoke our language. It was amazing, like plastic surgery. It was Felix Darcy's work, of course. I've never seen anything quite like it before.
Dear Mrs. Road. So sweet and such simple taste, don't you think? I mean, whoever would have dreamt of putting those china ducks on the wall? Big ones at the front and little ones at the back. I wonder where she bought them. I must ask her.
Shall I ask her?
You, Terence, would you?
I think not. I find Mrs. Road hell, to be honest, for once. So, they're here next Wednesday. I can't leave them out.
Black candles, Terence.
Of course.
Here are the coats, Mr. Fielding.
Oh, thank you, True.
Let me help you with yours, Mrs. Hecht.
Thank you, Miss Truebody. Poor, dear, sad old fur.
Oh, no. It's a lovely coat, madam.
Well, thank you, Terence. Extremely pleasant. You know we're going to miss you when you go.
Good night, Terence, darling. So kind. And in your last half, you must dine with us before you go.
I'd be delighted.
Good night, Mr. Hecht.
Oh, good night to you, Miss Truebody. Oh, it's turning very cold, you know. We're going to be having snow soon.
Good night, Miss Truebody.
Good night, Mrs. Hay.
And thank you for such a delightful meal. You must have gone to a lot of trouble.
Oh, not really, madam. It's nice to know you enjoyed it.
Good night again, Terence darling.
Good night, Shane.
Oh, it's turned cold. It's nearly the long night, isn't it? It's always supposed to snow at Caen during the long night.
And it often does. Oh, do come on, Shane.
Oh, Charles, you can quick march your boys as much as you like. I propose to go slower. Good night, Terence.
Good night.
There now. It was a success, wasn't it, Mr. Fielding?
Yes, I suppose it was true.
There, that's done. Oh, you look tired, sir.
I am a little true. Indeed, I am.
Is there anything else, sir?
No, nothing else. Sleep well, True.
And you too, sir. Good night.
Good night.
I wrote to Stella Road, George. Today I got another letter, not really a reply, and now I am worried.
Which is why you've dropped in again.
Yes, frankly. Here, read it for yourself.
Right. 15th of February. Dear Miss Fellowship, I am not mad, you must believe that, but I know my husband is trying to kill me. I will come and see you as soon as I can. You do understand that I am normal. I'm so afraid of the long nights. There's something not quite right about him. At night sometimes, when he thinks I'm asleep, he just lies watching the darkness. I know he's trying to kill me, but what can I do? It's not nice, is it?
You know, I suppose I should go to the police, but I thought first, would you perhaps see Terence Fielding?
Yes. I'll ring him now. I could go down to Caen tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, George.
I looked up Fielding's number after you were here the other day.
Oh. I wonder what the long nights are. Have you any idea?
I don't know. It's Ash Wednesday shortly. Something to do with Lent, perhaps.
It sounds possible.
Ah, Caen School. I'd like to speak to Mr. Terence Fielding, please. George Smiley. No, from London. Mr. Fielding is being got.
Good.
I wonder just how the husband is trying to kill the wife. Or how the wife thinks he is, rather.
I wonder that.
These long nights sound disturbing enough, even if you aren't expecting to be murdered.
Yes.
Maybe Fielding can tell us what they are. Ah, Fielding. Good evening. My name is George Smiley. I knew your brother well. We have, in fact, met. Yes, that was it. Look, I wonder if I might come to see you on a personal matter. A bad time? Well, what has happened? No, for a friend of mine. She's received a disturbing letter from the wife of a Caen master. Yes, Stella Road. Oh. Yes. Thank you, Fielding. Goodbye. Stella Road is dead, I'm afraid, Brim.
Dead? She was...
Murdered. Late on Wednesday night. That's last night. She and her husband had been dining with Fielding earlier in the evening.
And the husband?
I don't know. Fielding said something. I couldn't quite catch it.
George, they'll have to know about the letter.
The police, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, I think they will.
You couldn't go down there, could you?
To Caen? Well, I suppose I could. But would it really help?
I've a feeling it would.
All right, then. If you say so, Brim.
Oh, good.
I'd better find out who's in charge of the case there. Special branch might help. I'll give them a ring. And no doubt be on my way in the morning.
Oh, sorry, sir. I say, I nearly knocked you down.
I say, you nearly did. What's the rush about?
Sext, sir.
Sext?
Midday prayers, sir. We say them in the Abbey during Lent.
Ah, I see. Is that the east gate across there?
Yes, sir. I'll show you, sir. I had no need, really, to rush, but we always do. Are you visiting the school, sir?
Yes, I suppose I am. I hope to see Mr. Fielding if I have the time.
Oh, he's my housemaster, sir. My name's Perkins. I'm Mr. Fielding's head boy, sir.
Oh, that's what's called a coincidence, isn't it?
Yes, it is, sir.
You've had a lot of snow here. When did it start?
Yesterday, sir. It's a few days early. We usually get it on the long night. This is the gate, sir.
Do you? On the long nights, eh? Oh, thank you, Perkins. That's the police station just across the road, isn't it?
The police station? Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you again, Perkins. And don't be late for sex.
Oh, come in, Mr. Smiley. I was expecting you.
Yes, I'd hoped.
I'm Inspector Rigby. Ben Sparrow rang this morning, sir.
Ah, that was good of him.
Oh, come in, sir.
Thank you.
The two of you work together on the war, I believe.
Yes?
Well, sir, I'll be happy to give you all the help I can. Oh, I could do with some myself, the way things are. Anyway, I'm very pleased you've come.
Thank you.
I believe you've got a couple of letters for me.
Yes. I don't know if Ben explained, but here they are.
Ah, thank you, sir. He told me all about Miss Brimley. Oh. Not nice letters, are they? I suppose Miss Brimley is sure of the writing.
You can trust her.
Aye, so Ben said.
She's had other letters about a cake mix and so on from Mrs. Rode, and I suppose you can check the handwriting here.
Oh, we can, but it's her writing without a doubt. Well, sir, how long are you staying?
Well, I don't really know, Inspector. I should probably stay for a day or two just to have a word with Fielding. And go to the funeral, I suppose. I've booked in at the Sawley Arms.
Why no tell that? At least some think so. It's a funny place, Khan. There's a big gap between the town and gown. It's fear that does it. Fear and ignorance. Oh, I can call on Mr. Fielding and Mr. Darcy, and they say, "Good day, Sergeant," and give me a cup of tea in the kitchen. I don't get cross, but I can't get among them. They've got their own community, see, and no one outside it can get in on it.
Yes, it would be like that.
There's a lot I'd like to ask them. A lot of things. Who liked the Rhodes and who didn't? Whether Mr. Rhodes the good teacher? Whether his wife fitted in with the others? Lots of things. I've got all the facts I want, but I've got no clothes to hang on them.
Well, if you want me to help, I'll be delighted. But why not give me the facts first?
All right, then. Well, today is Friday the 18th. Stella Rhode was murdered between 11:10 and 11:45 on the night of Wednesday the 16th. She'd been struck on the head, must have been 15 to 20 times. It was a terrible murder, terrible. At a guess, I'd say she came from the drawing room to the front door to answer the bell or something, and when she opened the door, was struck down and dragged round to the conservatory. The conservatory door was unlocked.
I see. It's odd that he should have known that, isn't it?
It is that, sir. He finished her off there, out of sight like. He was wearing Wellington boots, size 10, be around 6 feet tall from the spacing of the footprints.
And covered in blood.
Aye.
Where was her husband?
I'll come to that later. Now, I said there were footprints, and so there were. The murderer came through the back garden. Where he came from and went to, heaven alone knows. There are no Wellington tracks leading away, none at all. A lot of other footprints, so we can be grateful for the snow, but it doesn't help as it might. He left one thing behind him in the conservatory, an old cloth belt, navy blue, from a cheap overcoat by the look of it.
Was she robbed or anything?
No sign of interference. She was wearing a string of green beads round her neck, and they've gone, and it looks as though he tried to get the rings off her finger, but they were too tight. I need hardly tell you that we've had reports from every corner of the country about tall men in blue overcoats and gumboots, but none of them had wings, as far as I know, or 7-league Wellingtons for jumping from the conservatory to the road.
On the telephone, Fielding told me that the Rhodes had been dining with him that evening.
Just so. They left Fielding's house in the center of the town at about 10 to 11, walking. Their house is about half a mile away on the edge of the playing fields.
North Fields, it's called.
That's the place. Well, they got there at about 11:05. When he got home, Rhode remembered that he left a case containing examination papers behind him at Fielding's. So he went back, and Mrs. Rhode was going to wait up for him. Well, he arrived back at Fielding's about 11:30, collected the papers in their case, and set off home again. At that time of night here, there isn't anybody much about. Rhode doesn't remember whether he saw anyone. He has an idea a bicycle overtook him, but he's not sure. It was a fine night, cold, a fresh fall of snow on the ground. The light was on in the drawing room. Everything looked quiet enough, very normal.
There was a moon, wasn't there?
Nearly full. You could see a mighty long way. Well, anyway, he found he didn't have his key with him, so he rang the bell. But he got no reply. So he called to his wife through the letterbox, and still got no reply. Then he noticed the churned up snow and footprints going round the side of the house.
Did he realize there was blood about?
No. He thought it was an overflow from the gutter. It just showed up dark. Well, he followed the marks round the house until he came to the conservatory. No moonlight there, and the light didn't work.
Didn't work?
Oh, simple enough. The bulb had gone, and the conservatory wasn't used much in the winter.
Well, did he light a match?
No, he didn't have any. Non-smoker, see? His wife didn't approve of smoking. So he went in the dark, calling her name. Then he fell over something. At first, he thought it was a refugee parcel. Then he realized it was his wife. There he was then, in the dark, trying to find out what was wrong, and then discovering that his hands were covered in blood. He doesn't remember much after that.
Poor devil. And then?
He was found by a master who lives 100 yards or so away, Mr. Darcy. Almost out of his mind, his hands and face covered in blood. I arrived there about 1. We got him into Dorchester Central Hospital. He's still there, but I gather the shock's wearing off.
What is the refugee parcel Rhodes mentioned?
Mrs. Rhodes was the organizer for Khan of parcel collections for a refugee organization, the Public Schools Committee for Refugee Relief, clothes and such like. Very energetic at it, she was.
I see. What fingerprints did you pick up at the house?
Oh, Mr. Rhodes were everywhere. The others were made by gloved hands, made before Rhodes.
These examination papers he went back to Fielding's for, were they as important as all that?
Yes, up to a point, anyway. The marks had to be handed in by midday Friday. Today, that is.
Why take them to Fielding's in the first place?
Earlier on, Rhodes had been on chapel duty, so he didn't have time to return home before dinner. He changed at the school, and that's where he left his latchkey, in his other suit.
I see. Then how do you explain Stella Rhodes' letters?
Oh, it is known in the letters we've got to explain.
Oh, what else?
Well, as you know, Mrs. Rhodes was chapel, the only member of the school that was. The minister is a man called Cardew. He knew her pretty well, even before she came to Caen.
Well, isn't Rhodes chapel?
Was. He turned Church of England when he came here. Tried to get his wife to turn also, but she wouldn't. Well, now, Cardew came to see me a couple of weeks back. He was worried and very perplexed at what Mrs. Rhodes had said to him the day before.
He came to see you, officially?
He said he wanted to talk to me as a friend and not as a policeman, which meant he wanted to talk to me as a policeman.
Naturally. And what had Mrs. Rhodes said?
She told Cardew that her husband was going to kill her. In the long nights. She repeated this a number of times. Cardew let her go on, then asked her what put such a dreadful thought in her head. I think he was probably a bit too firm with her. In a way, all she did was to start crying. Not hysterically, just quietly to herself. So Cardew offered to help her in any way he could. Asked her again what had given her the idea.
Did she say?
No, she wouldn't speak. Just shook her head. Then got up and went to the door. Shaking her head as if in despair, Cardew said. She turned to him at the door, and he thought she was going to say something. But she didn't. She just left.
How very curious. She seemed very certain that Rhodes was going to do it.
It wasn't Rhodes. It couldn't have been. We found the murder weapon in a ditch 4 miles north of Caen, the morning after the murder. He couldn't have got it there, could he?
What was it?
18 inches of coaxial cable, 2 inches in diameter. One of my chaps found it. We're keeping it very close, sir.
All right, I'll remember. It is the weapon, I suppose.
Everything fits.
It's odd, isn't it, that the murderer should have carried the weapon so far and then just thrown it in a ditch.
It is odd. Very odd. And I'll tell you 2 things that are even odder. There's a canal running beside the road for half its 4 miles. He could have pitched it anywhere along there. We'd never have been any the wiser. The other thing, Mr. Rhodes used a length of the same stuff in a demonstration lecture on elementary electronics. Mislaid it about 3 weeks ago.
I see. I suppose...
Yes, sir?
Rhodes could have had an accomplice.
He could.
Well, the papers mentioned a woman you wanted to interview, a Mad Janie.
Oh, it's a nice thought. Mad Janie as an accomplice.
No, I didn't mean that. I just wondered why you wanted to interview her.
Well, Stella Rhodes knew her, see? She was a kindly woman, was Mrs. Rhodes, easy to talk to. I knew her through being chapel, my wife also. We liked her, most did, although some of the women at chapel took against her, but, well, you know what women are. Anyway, Mrs. Rhodes sort of befriended this Janie creature, used to give her food and clothes. She is what you would call not all there.
Happily alienated.
Talks to herself and all that. Lives in a disused Norman church over at a place called Pyle, a couple of miles south of Caen. The oldest village in Dorset, so they claim. It's a rum place. Half a dozen families, all so inbred, you can no more sort them out than a barn full of cats. Well, Mrs. Rhodes used to visit her in her lair there. That upset some people.
Yes, yes. And I suppose Mad Janie has vanished.
Hasn't been seen in her usual haunts since early Wednesday night on the lane towards North Fields. But that don't mean a thing. These people like Janie are all over the neighborhood for years, and one day they're gone like snow in the fire. But we found a spare set of footprints running along the far end of the Rhodes garden. Woman's prints, by the look of them. Could be Janie's. I hope to heaven they are. We could do with an eyewitness, even a mad one. Well, there it all is, sir.
Yes, yes. It's complicated.
Aye.
I'll nose around a bit, Inspector. When I get back to the hotel, I'll give Fielding a ring. He'll probably extend an invitation to dinner. I should like to talk to Fielding.
Sherry wine or Madeira, Smiley?
Thank you. A glass of sherry.
Tarts drink Madeira, but boys like it. Perhaps that's why they're frightful flirts. We're all rather subdued at the moment by this dreadful business.
Oh, how have the boys taken it?
Oh, they adore it. My own house has been particularly fortunate because the Rhodes were dining here that night. Some oaf from the police even wanted to question one of my boys.
Indeed? What on earth about?
Oh, God knows. You knew my brother well, didn't you? He often talked about you.
Yes, I knew Adrian very well. We were close friends.
We didn't see much of one another in later years, Adrian and I. Being a fraud, I can't afford to be seen beside the genuine article.
A message from Mr. Darcy, sir. Oh, hello, sir.
Have you met Mr. Smiley, Tim?
Yes, sir. I ran into him in the Abbey Close this afternoon.
Ran into me literally, but apologized in the most gentlemanly manner and showed me the East Gate.
Ah, I see. And I suppose Mr. Darcy is going to be a few minutes late.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
Good night, sir. Good night, sir.
Good night, Perkins.
Good night, Tim. Musical genius is Perkins, but a problem in the schoolroom. Darcy won't be more than 5 minutes, I know him. He's a frightful toad. Looks like a Sickert model 50 years after. All trousers and collar.
Oh, what's his subject?
Subjects? I'm afraid we don't have subjects here. Darcy is senior tutor by election and bachelor by profession, if you follow me. His subject is other people's shortcomings. Stella Rhodes, for instance.
Ah. She was somewhat different from most of the wives here, I imagine.
She was everything we're forced to ignore. She was red brick, council estates, new towns, the very antithesis of Carr.
Yes, yes. Did you like her, Fielding?
Not at all, Smiley. I didn't dislike her. I found her rather touching. But of course she made enemies. She was too honest. And Khan has no defense against her sort of honesty. Ah, that'll be Darcy. We'll let him have just one glass of sherry, only one. After all, he has kept us waiting.
Terence, if I may talk shop for one moment. Perkins' work has been abysmal these last few days. I declare I have never seen work like it. Is he unwell? Has this terrible business upset him? What is it? He never was bright, but really...
I don't think he's unwell, Felix. I'll have a word with him, if you like. Tim is a sensitive boy. Perhaps he's upset.
Well, do have a little chat to him, Terence, please. I'm so sorry, Smiley, to go off suddenly at such a tangent. It was only that I wondered if this unseemly business could be responsible for the boy's behavior.
Oh, yes. You're not suggesting that my head boy had a hand in the murder of Stella Rhodes, are you, Felix?
Really, Terence, it was the last thing I had in mind. Frankly, and in confidence, I have reason to believe it was her past that brought about her death.
Why do you say that?
It appears she was expecting to be attacked.
Well, go on, Felix.
It was her dog. You remember that mongrel they arrived with?
Yes.
A couple of weeks back, Harriman, the vet, a superior type of person, came to see one of my sister's dogs. He told us that Mrs. Rhodes had had the dog destroyed the previous day. She said it had bitten the postman. Oh, some long and confused story. The post office would sue. The police had been round, and I didn't know what...
where is all this getting us, my dear Felix?
I'm coming to the point. She said to Harriman that the dog couldn't really protect. It could only warn. It wouldn't do any good.
Wasn't she upset about losing the dog?
Oh, indeed, yes. tears and all. Harriman was rather perplexed, I gather. Mrs. Rhodes' behavior didn't seem to him at all normal. Another curious fact was the condition of the dog.
Hmm?
It had been maltreated, seriously so. Its back was marked as if from beating.
Did Harriman follow up this remark she made about not doing any good?
He asked her what she meant, but she wouldn't explain. However, I think the explanation is obvious enough.
Oh, what?
My sister and I talked it over after the death. We decided that Stella Road had formed some unsavory association before coming to Caen, which had recently been revived, possibly against her will. Some violent ruffian who would resent the improvement in her station.
No doubt you've seen him lurking in the shrubbery, Felix.
Well,
How badly was the postman bitten by the dog?
but that is the extraordinary thing, the very crux of the story, my dear fellow. The postman hadn't been bitten at all. My sister inquired. The whole story was an absolute string of lies from beginning to end.
Glad you came, Felix. Oh, Smiley, just before you go.
Yes?
That business you rang me about, what was it exactly?
Oh, a letter from Mrs. Rhodes just before she was murdered. The police are handling it, but they don't regard it as significant. She seems to have had a sort of persecution complex.
So it seems, eh, Felix? Well, good night.
Ah, there's been a fresh fall of snow. The long night, Terence, the long night. We can walk up to the crossroad together, Smiley, unless you have a car.
No, I haven't. I mean, not here. Good night, Fielding. Thank you for the evening. You must dine with me if you ever come to London. Do you?
I'll let you know. Good night.
Good night, Terence.
Tell me, Darcy, what are the long nights?
We have a proverb that it always snows at Caen in the long night. That is the traditional term here for the nights of Lent.
It's a beautiful night. Is this Northfield?
Northfields Lane. There are several rugger pitches in these fields. That's Northfield. The Rhodes' house is over to your right. Looks horribly empty even from here. My own house is rather larger and lies farther up the lane.
Was it along here that you found Stanley Road that night?
About a quarter of a mile nearer to my house. He was in a terrible condition, poor fellow. Terrible.
From what you were saying at dinner, it seems the Rhodes were a very ill-assorted couple.
Precisely. If her death had happened in any other way, I would describe it as providential, a blessed release for Rhodes. She was a thoroughly mischievous woman, Smiley, who made it her business to hold her husband up to ridicule. I believe it was intentional, others do not. I do, and I have my reasons. She took a pleasure in deriding her husband.
And Khan, too, no doubt.
Just so.
But was she such a problem? Surely her husband could have spoken to her.
I never encouraged him to do so, I assure you. This is our parting of the ways. You must come to Sherry before you go. Do you stay long?
I doubt it. But I'm sure you have enough worries at the moment.
What do you mean?
Well, the press, the police, and all the attendant fuss.
Ah, yes, just so, quite so. Nevertheless, our community life must continue. I will send a note to the Crawley tomorrow. Good night.
Good night. Shall I? Always visit the ground, the scene of the crime. One never knows. Here goes. What's that? The conservatory door swinging. Good God, there's somebody. Or is it a shadow? No. Hello? Who are you?
I thought you was the devil, mister. But you got no wings. But you can't do nothing, mister, 'cause I got this holly for to hold you.
Yes, Jane. That's a very pretty coat you're wearing, Jane.
A pretty blue coat, mister, for to keep me warm. From my darling.
Who is your darling, Jane?
She not be here no more. But she didn't go with the devil, mister. Lay still, she did, with not a word.
You saw the devil, Jane?
There's not many seen the devil fly, mister. But Janey seed him. Janey seed him. Silver wings like fishes he done had. Janey saw.
Where did you find that coat, Jane?
Him a bad one. Oh, him a bad one, mister. But I seed him flying, riding on the wind. And the moon behind him lighting up the way. Then closer, sisters, moon and devil.
Flying, was he, Jane?
Like this, mister. Like this, riding on the wind. Silver wind. Silver.
Oh, damn. Now she won't come back. But she saw something. She saw the devil fly, riding on the wind.
We found her in the old church at Pyle. I'll tell you about that in a minute, Mr. Smiley. She's made a sort of statement. This last part of it reads like a confession, if it reads like anything. Can you understand it?
So I tells my darling, I tells her, you are a naughty creature to go with the devil. But her did not hearken, see, and I took angry with her, but she paid no call. I can't abide them as go with devils in the night, and I told her. She ought to have had Holly, mister, there's the truth. But Janey drove the devil on. And there's one will thank me. That's my darling. And I took her jewels for the saints to pretty out the church. And a coat for to keep me warm. The coat? I suppose it is the one.
Yes, we've traced the woman who gave it to Stella Road for the refugees. Janey must have pinched it from the conservatory.
Did you find any, what she calls, jewels?
We found the missing green beads. They were on the altar, on a cross of twigs. The whole place was scarifying. And of course she would go on about the devil, on and on.
The devil flying.
That's it, flying on the wind, his silver wings stretched out behind him. Like a folk song it is.
Do you think she did it?
No. Do you, sir?
No, of course not. It was quite impossible. But I think she saw whoever did it, immediately afterwards. That's driving the devil off. But why flying on the wind? And why should he have silver wings? What are you going to do with her, Inspector?
Hold her for the moment. I think she's better out of the way, just in case.
Yes, yes. The devil must have seen her also.
Are you going to the funeral?
Yes, I think so. And after it, I might try to get a word with Rhodes on behalf of Miss Fellowship and her paper, if you understand me.
Oh, I see what you mean, sir. Yes, that would be a very useful idea.
So, my dear Brim, although they didn't use the Abbey, poor Stella Road was given a high Anglican service with a congregation of town and gown. I must say I prefer the town to the gown from what I've seen of things. But I thought to write you this note just to say that Stella's father was there, a fine, upstanding old man. And I had my first glimpse of Stanley Road, a shallow, ordinary face, a short, ordinary body, black, ordinary hair. The odd thing about him was his impassive, almost too easy manner. Another piece of odd behavior. Fielding at the grave, moving away with an expression of strong distaste as Rhodes came near him, and Rhodes not noticing. I think, for once, T. Fielding was behaving in a genuine manner, but I can't think why he should give himself away, sir. Afterwards, I spoke to Rhodes on your behalf, quite without emotion, the man was. Anyway, I'm seeing him tomorrow. He's back at Northfield to get some details for a small obituary on his wife for your paper. I hope you approve, my dear Brim. It's very good of you to spare the time to see me, Mr. Rhodes, in the circumstances.
Not at all.
You were married at Branksome, I believe, Mr. Rhodes.
The Branksome Hill Tabernacle. A fine church.
When was that?
12 years ago, last September.
Did Mrs. Rhodes engage in charitable work in Branksome? I know she was very active here.
No, not at Branksome. But a lot here. She had to look after her father at Branksome, you see.
Did she take a large part in the social activities at Carn?
She did a bit, yes.
But being chapel, she kept mainly with the chapel people from the town. You should ask Mr. Cardew about that. He's the minister.
But may I say, Mr. Rose, that she took an active part in school affairs as well?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Now, is there any little fact that you would especially like us to include? Anything she herself would like to be remembered by?
No. No, not really. I can't think of anything. No, you could say her father was a magistrate up north. She was proud of that.
You've been very patient with me, Mr. Rhodes. We're most grateful on The Voice.
I say, you haven't got a car, have you?
No. I mean, I'm afraid I left it in London.
Oh. Never mind. I was only going to suggest we went for a drive, had a chat at the same time. I get a bit fed up kicking around here on my own.
I understand.
Do you? I don't think many do. Understand the loneliness, I mean. They found out all my correcting. What am I supposed to do here all on my own? No teaching, nothing. You'd think they want to get rid of me.
Oh, I'm sure that isn't so, Mr. Rhodes.
I know they've done it for the best. But it worries me nothing to do. And my correction, well, not being handled as I would. Simon Snow gave one boy of mine in elementary science 61%. The boy's an absolute fool. Perkins is his name, nice enough boy, head of Fielding's house. He'd have been lucky to get 30%. Snow gave him 61. It's impossible, quite impossible.
Yes, it does seem unlikely.
I suppose really I should have moved out of here. The place is getting on my nerves a bit.
This house, you mean?
Yes. Miss Darcy asked me over to their place to stay, you know, but I didn't feel like it somehow. Not yet.
No, of course.
Very good people, the Darcys. Very good indeed. They have a sherry party on tonight. I'd quite like to have gone in a way.
Who happened to met, Smiley?
Well, the young people in the... Oh, no, they've moved. Oh, there they are, Darcy. Are they the Snows?
Ah, yes, just so. Simon and Anne Snow. Let me introduce you.
Thank you.
I say, Dorothy, is that Smiley your brother's introducing to the Snows?
Yes, that's him. Strange little blighter.
He married Lord Sawley's cousin. Did you know that?
Oh.
Yes, Lady Anne Thurcombe. She left him soon afterwards, of course.
What do you mean, of course?
You don't know Anne Thurcombe. And now I've seen George Smiley, I wonder if it ever happened.
Poor Simon's been having an awful time, Mr. Smiley. Felix Darcy unloaded all Rhodes' exam corrections onto him.
You mean you have too lots of corrections?
Afraid so. It's been a bad week. And rather humiliating in a way. Several of the boys who were up to me for science last half are now in Rhodes' form. One or two I'd regarded as practically unteachable. Rhodes seems to have brought them on marvelously.
Yes. He was talking to me about one boy, Perkins.
He should be pleased with Perkins. The boy only got 15% last half. This time it's 61. Quite remarkable. Whatever else they say about Rhodes, he's a good teacher.
Teacher, darling, don't let them hear you use that expression.
Oh, no.
You know, Mr. Smiley, Simon's leaving at the end of this half.
Oh. Yes, thank heavens. Back to Oxford, a DPhil, and then a university job.
You don't like Carl?
Oh, can you blame me? I like it less than poor Stella Road did, and that's saying something.
Shane Heck's advancing.
You must be dreadfully important, Mr. Smiley, for Darcy to have served decent sherry. What are you? President of the Royal Academy?
Oh, I'm afraid not. Darcy and I were both dining at Terence Fielding's on Saturday night, and Darcy asked me for a sherry.
I don't think Terence can be coming. He seemed frightfully upset at the funeral yesterday.
Well, it was rather upsetting, don't you think?
Oh, dreadful. Stella Road was such a nice person, I thought, and so unusual. She did such clever things with the same dress. But she had such curious friends.
Mrs. Snow, I've been meaning to talk to you. I want you to take over Stella Rose's job on the refugees. The master's very keen on refugees.
No good, Miss Darcy. We're leaving at the end of this half. I thought everyone knew that.
Felix never tells me a thing, old Jack.
And don't you ask me, Dorothy, darling. You know I'm up to my eyes in all sorts of charity.
Refugees?
Oh, it all started with the Hungarians, collecting for them. Stella Rose was one of the few wives who did anything. She worked very well, right until her death. I went over to North Fields on Friday with that parson man from the Tin Tabernacle and Cardew. Well, to see if there was any refugee stuff to tidy up, and there wasn't a thing out of place. Everything was all packed up and addressed. We just had to send it off.
Oh, that's very efficient.
Well, it was. Now, who the hell can I find to replace her?
Darling Dorothy. Never happy unless she's organizing somebody. Mostly poor Felix.
I suppose I could help. After all, Stella Rhodes was very kind to us, you know, Mr. Smiley.
Yes, yes.
The only Smiley I ever heard of married Lady Anne Thurcombe, a very curious match. I understand he was quite unsuitable. I never did hear what became of Anne. She went to Africa. Or was it India? No, it was America. So tragic. I must go. Charles is looking awfully lonely.
If anybody deserved to be murdered, that's...
Instead, it was Stella. How unjust things are.
You said she was kind to you.
Oh, very.
Yes.
Just one thing. When we moved into a little house in Bread Street, the rain was simply teeming down. We used a firm called Mulligan's. They were absolutely foul. Wanted paying straight away. And I didn't have the checkbook, and Simon was examining for the scholarship. So they even threatened to take the stuff away again.
Yes, fantastic.
Then Stella turned up. I can't think how she even knew we were moving. When she saw what was going on, she just went to the phone and rang Mr. Mulligan himself. I don't know what she said to him, but she made the foreman talk to him afterwards, and there was no more trouble after that. She was terribly happy to help.
Extraordinary story, isn't it? But completely true.
Yes, yes. A sort of magic spell.
I hope you didn't mind my turning up like this out of the blue, George, but the chance came, and I thought I'd like to see Khan.
I can't think how the Christian Voice will manage without you for a day, Brim.
Don't be sarcastic. And anyway, I found a perfectly good young lady to hold the fort, if you can describe the Voice as a fort.
Well, it's a description that would fit the Sawley Arms. Take where we are now. They call this the residence lounge.
Yes, it's a rather extraordinary echo of the past, isn't it?
Inefficient, antiquated, and smug. There's a framed tapestry in my room of a Buckinghamshire garden. Even I had forgotten such things once existed. And still do, it seems.
The one in my room is of the wild garden at Sandringham.
Good Lord.
I didn't believe it at first, but it's true.
I'm glad you came today.
Thank you, George. It wasn't Road, was it?
No, it was impossible. Rigby is keeping one piece of information very close. I can't tell you what, but it lets Road out. Not that he was ever in, not really.
Have you any idea why Stella Road accused him as she did?
Well, I wrote to you about the minister of the chapel, Cardew, didn't I?
Yes, you wrote out everything very clearly. And as you said, cause and effect just don't go together. No reasonable sequence of events.
No. Stella's obsession with her death in the long night seems to have been, well, unreasonable. There's one thing, though, Brim. Stella wasn't all of a whole. Not by any means.
You mean not a sound, sane, nice Glaston? A pillar of the Voice?
There are a number of opposing views about her. In Khan, I mean. Darcy dislikes her and seems to have very good reasons for doing so, which he keeps to himself.
And there was the dog that didn't bite the... Who was it?
Postman. Yes, yes. Well, perhaps she was afraid of someone.
But not her husband.
Not Rhodes, no. Then at the party this evening, a very nice young couple, the Snows, told me how helpful she was when they moved in the town. Came and saved them when the removal men were being difficult. Rang up the owner of the firm, a Mr. Mulligan. Mulligan spoke to the foreman, and all was sweetness and light.
What did she say to Mulligan?
Well, that the Snows don't know. But Stella Road was of no importance in Khan. If she'd been the master's wife, then it would be understandable that Mulligan would kowtow to her.
So she must have had something on the man.
Yes, yes. Doesn't signify. It only places Stella Road in another light. Now, what was it Felix Darcy said to me? She was a thoroughly mischievous woman. And then he went on to say how she took pleasure in deriding Road, holding him up to ridicule.
Road isn't weeping any tears, is he?
No, he's indifferent. And it's an indifference which can only come from a clear conscience.
About Road's briefcase, George, did he really have to go back to Fielding's for it at that time of night? Was he going to sit up marking the papers until the early hours?
I don't know. Presumably he was, but I don't know. I know one thing, Brim. Not that it has anything to do with the murder.
What's that?
Fielding's head boy, Timothy Perkins, has been cheating in elementary science. Oh, it's obvious. His exam marks were unbelievably high. And the science papers were the ones in Rhodes' case.
You mean the boy may have had a chance to look at them whilst the Rhodes were at Fielding's?
More than likely.
You know, George, if Rhodes hadn't gone back for the briefcase, Stella Rhodes would still be alive.
And whoever murdered her must have known she was alone. Yes.
The Janey woman?
Oh, I'm sure not. But of course, Janey saw somebody or something about the time of the murder. And she stole the beads from the body, like she stole a coat from a refugee parcel. Only that doesn't make sense anymore.
Why not?
Well, at the sherry party this evening, Dorothy Darcy told me that when she went to the Rhodes house on Friday with Cardew to see if there was any refugee stuff to tidy up, everything was packed up, labeled, ready to be sent off.
So Mad Janey couldn't have stolen it, or Janey's coat couldn't have been the one in the parcel.
But it was. Rigby traced it to the woman who gave it to Stella for the refugees. And the police found the matching belt in the conservatory by the body. Now, what did Janey say? I took her jewels for the saints, I did, and a coat for to keep me warm.
But it all contradicts, doesn't it?
Well, unless somebody packed the clothes up after Stella died and before Miss Darcy and Cardew went to the house on Friday. Now, why the devil anyone should do that, I don't know. Good Lord.
What?
Of course. Whoever killed her must have been covered in blood. He would have needed protective clothing, and to get rid of it...
Good heavens. Yes.
You must do something for me tomorrow, Brim, in London, would you?
Of course. I was planning to return tomorrow. Where do you want me to go?
The Public Schools Committee for Refugee Relief.
I'm sorry to be a nuisance, but a friend of mine asked me to make some inquiries about a parcel. My name's Brimley, Miss Brimley. The parcel was from Calm School. It was sent last Friday.
Last Friday? Then it would have arrived yesterday, and with luck, I ought to have entered it.
It wouldn't have been sent away already, Miss...
Just call me Jill. No, I'm miles behind. Calm School. That's posh. Let's see. Oh, and a frightful muddle. But then if we weren't, we wouldn't be the Public Schools Committee for Refugee Relief, would we? Oh, here it is. Calm, parcel post, £27.
Oh, good.
Is your friend at Calm?
Yes.
And I bet she's given something to the collection she didn't mean to give.
Oh, how clever of you. Yes, at least she thinks she has. An old dress with a quite expensive brooch on it. It's the brooch, of course.
The Calm parcel should be over here. Sorry, it's a terrible mess, isn't it? Like a mad post office. Parcels from every corner of the country. Every corner that has a public school, that is.
Can we have a quick look inside? I mean, you don't have to get permission or anything.
Oh, don't worry about that. Now, it ought to be here in this pile. Calm's label has C4 on it. My cousin went to Calm. Oh, he's an utter wet. You know what he told me? During Ascot week, they all... Oh, just a minute. Hello. Here we are.
Oh, that is clever of you. Let me take it.
Oh, thanks. There we are. I say, Calm was where they had that dreadful murder, wasn't it? They're holding that mad woman, aren't they? Now, let's open it. Funny.
What is, my dear?
Well, normally the Calm parcels are beautifully packed, but this is quite different. I'll take the things out one by one. Awful muddle. What colour dress?
Grey. Grey with a few pink flowers.
Socks. No duffel. 2 black pullovers. Well, honestly, they must be having a brainstorm. Look at these. A pair of filthy old gloves. Leather, I suppose. Awfully stained, aren't they? And look at these. Rubber overshoes. They're pretty grubby, too. Now, oh, what's this? A plastic cape. Bicycling cape. Ugh. Oh, it's damp and slimy.
Oh.
Are you all right, Miss Brimley?
Yes. Don't worry about me.
You look so pale. But there's no grey dress.
No, my dear. There wouldn't be. These are enough.
I don't understand. This is all mad.
Something very dreadful has happened. I must phone. The police will want to know. Leave the parcel exactly as it is, please.
Is it blood? on those things?
Yes. I'm afraid it is.
Tim.
What?
Oh, you did give me a start. And you haven't even put the light on.
I was just going out.
Standing there like a figure in Madame Tussauds.
I'm just on my way to Mrs. Harlow, my music lesson.
I know that, Tim Perkins. I know which evening it is.
Yes, Miss Truebody. Well,
Tim, what is the matter?
I don't think there's anything the matter, Miss Truebody.
Of course there is. Ever since poor Mrs. Rhodes died, you've been going about looking as if you'd seen a ghost. It's not like you. Did it upset you so much?
Mrs. Rhodes? No. No, it hasn't, really. I was awfully sorry, but, well, I'd only been to tea with her once.
Yes, Tim. I know what you mean. So it's not poor Mrs. Rhodes. What is it?
Nothing. Well, it's only the exams. They've worried me. I'm not sure if I've done it all well or if Mr. Rhodes will see my results. I mean, you see...
I don't see, Tim.
Let me tell you after my music lesson.
All right. I'll be in my room.
Oh, thank you, True. Thanks ever so much.
Mind how you go on that bicycle. And do be careful at the bottom of Longmead Hill. It's awfully slushy down there.
Oh, I'll go as slow as a snail.
Give my regards to Mrs. Harlow.
I will.
Oh, Mr. Smiley, you got my message then?
Message? No, Inspector. I was on my way over already.
Oh, I thought you were quick in arriving. You've heard the news then?
What news?
About the boy in Fielding's house, missing all night.
No, I've heard nothing.
Well, 8:30 last night, Fielding rang us here. Perkins, his head boy, hadn't arrived at a music lesson with a Mrs. Harlow who lives over at Longmead. Neither had he come back. We found him an hour or so later at the bottom of Longmead Hill, half in a ditch, his bicycle beside him. Dead.
Oh, my dear God.
We've closed the road and we've been trying to reconstruct the accident. Looks as though he must have fallen from his bike near the bottom of the hill and hit his head on a stone, his right temple.
How did Fielding take it?
He was very shaken. Just seemed to give up. And then he broke down and asked to be left alone.
How do you mean, broke down?
He cried. Wept like a child. I would never have thought it.
I suppose it was an accident.
I suppose so.
Perhaps, Inspector, before we go any further, I'd better give you my news. That's why I came to see you. I've just heard from Miss Brimley. She's been looking at the contents of a parcel.
Yes, there is the refugee relief place at York Square. No, I'm not sure. I'm only hopeful. Yeah. Yes, fingerprints on all surfaces. Yes. I'll come up with the 4:25 this afternoon. At 8:05. Oh, one last thing. I'll be bringing some samples of a schoolboy's handwriting and an examination paper. Yes. I'd like the opinion of a handwriting expert. Thanks. See you later. Hey, it's a funny sort of jump in the dark, that one of yours, about Perkins.
Well, I've no idea yet what it might prove. But that bicycling cape in the parcel looks like the answer to Janie's silver wings in the moonlight.
Someone riding a bike with a plastic cape flying out behind him.
Yes, the devil riding on the wind.
I shall have to let Janie go, I suppose.
I wouldn't, Rigby. Keep her with you, so long as you can possibly manage. No more accidents, for heaven's sake. We've had enough.
Then you don't believe Perkins' death was an accident?
Good Lord, no. And nor do you you?
I put a detective onto it.
This is a clever chap we're up against. Everything devised to the last detail, even the weapon you found where you did. Stella Rhodes' murder was a murder with clues cast to mislead. A murder planned to look unplanned. And somehow poor young Perkins got in the way. Or more likely knew something, without knowing it, if you see what I mean. God knows what, except it was important to the murderer.
All right. I'll keep Janie in.
If you find any fingerprints on the stuff in the parcel, will you have anything local to compare them with?
Well, we've got Rhodes, of course, and Janie's.
But not Fielding?
As a matter of fact, we have, from long ago. But nothing to do with this kind of thing.
Oh, it was during the war. His brother told me, up in the north of England. It was hushed up, wasn't it?
Yes. So far as I've heard, only the Darcys know. And the master, of course. Some Air Force boy.
Yes, that was it. Well, I'll be off. Good hunting in London, Inspector.
Are you making any calls or anything, sir?
Well, I was thinking of dropping in at Fielding.
Mr. Fielding's very upset, sir. He told me he didn't want to see anyone, but I've said you're here, sir, and he'll be in shortly. Would you like me to take your coat?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, True.
Yes, sir.
Smiley, what do you want?
I just wanted to say goodbye, Fielding, and to offer you my condolences.
Well, goodbye. Thank you for calling. You needn't have bothered, really. You could have sent me a card, couldn't you?
Well, I could have done, yes. But it just seems so very tragic when he was so near success.
What do you mean? What the devil do you mean?
Well, I mean in his work, the improvement. Simon Snow was telling me about it. Amazing, really, the way Rhodes brought him on.
Goodbye, Smiley. Thanks for coming.
Well, not at all. I suppose poor Rhodes must have been bucked with those exam results, too. I mean, it was more or less a matter of life and death for Perkins, passing that exam, wasn't it? He wouldn't have got his remove next half if he'd failed that science paper. You must have helped him wonderfully, both of you, you and Rhodes. Oh, you've heard the latest, I suppose, about that wretched gypsy woman who killed Stella Rhodes. They've decided she's fit to plead. Or just between ourselves, Fielding, I don't believe she did it. Do you? I don't.
No. Khan killed them. It could only happen here. It's the game we play, the exclusion game. Divide and rule. Now, for God's sake, go. You've got what you wanted. Go.
Oh, come on, Fielding. There's a fire here. Now, sit down. Good. Now, listen. If what I think is true, there isn't much time. I want you to tell me about Tim Perkins, about the exam paper. He would have failed, wouldn't he?
Yes. I've had to leave.
The day the Rhodes came to dinner, that day Rhodes left his case in the hall. It was unlocked. But you know that, don't you? Perkins took his chance, and later, when you asked him how he'd done in the exam...
He wept. He wept as only a child can.
And he told you he'd cheated. That he had looked up the answers and copied them onto his paper. And after the murder of Stella Rhodes, he remembered what else he'd seen in the briefcase. Is that right?
No, don't you see? Tim wouldn't have cheated to save his life. He never cheated at all. I cheated for him.
You? But you couldn't copy his handwriting.
It was only formulae and diagrams written with a ballpoint pen, the kind we all use. Don't you see, Smiley, it was easy. His paper was hopeless. He'd only done 2 out of the 7 questions. So I cribbed 5 answers from the science book. He was in the case, too, and wrote them in.
Then it was you who opened the case. You who saw...
Yes, it was me, I tell you, not Tim. He knew nothing.
And when Stella was murdered, you knew who had done it?
Yes, I knew Rhodes had killed her.
Yes. And what exactly was in the case, beside the papers?
A sheet of transparent plastic. It may have been one of those pack-away cape things. An old pair of gloves and a pair of homemade galoshes.
Homemade?
The hack from a pair of Wellington boots, I should think.
Was that all?
No. There was a length of heavy cable, I presume for demonstrating something in his science lessons. It seemed natural enough in winter to carry waterproofs about. Then, after the murder, I realized how he'd done it.
Did you know why he'd done it?
Rhodes was drunk with the pride of Khan. It had gone to his head. It must have hurt him terribly that Stella wouldn't take any part in the power and glory, wouldn't share any of it. The night they came to dinner, the night she died, she upset Rhodes. I never told anyone this, but she did. Rhodes was full of a sermon the master had just given. Hold fast to that which is good. Oh, Rhodes went on and on about it. He couldn't take too much drink, you know. He wasn't used to it. She kept quiet till he'd finished, then laughed and said, poor old Stan. You'll always be Stan to me. I've never seen anyone so angry as he was then. He went quite pale. I've watched her, too, at meals, at dinner parties, elsewhere as well as here. I watched the way she'd peel an apple, Oh, you know what I mean. Well, she must have seen how people do things here, but it never occurred to her she ought to copy them. I admire that. So do you, I expect, but Khan doesn't. And Rhodes didn't. And I think he grew to hate her for not conforming. He came to see her as the one factor which would deprive him of a great career. He couldn't divorce her. That would do him more harm than being married to her in the eyes of Khan. Rhodes knew that. So he killed her. He plotted a squalid murder. With his little scientist's mind, he fabricated clues. But something went wrong. Tim Perkins got 61%. An impossible mark. He must have cheated. And to cheat, he must have opened the briefcase, and then he must have seen the cape, the boots, the gloves, the cable. So Rhodes killed him, too.
Yes. Thank you, Fielding. I'll have to let Rigby know.
Yes, let the sergeant know. I'll have to face the music about the cheating. I feel much better now, anyway. Much.
I sent a chap round to collect Rhodes. He should be here any moment. And no arrest, just a chat. Why the hell didn't Fielding tell us about this before?
Oh, that's what I'm wondering. It could be that he didn't understand the significance of what he saw until...
Until what, sir?
Perkins's death, I suppose, Rigby.
And that doesn't add up. The handwriting blokes at the yard are convinced that the whole exam paper's in the same hand. Is Fielding a liar, then?
Yes. The most accomplished liar I'd come across for a long time.
Rhodes could have done everything. He could have dressed himself up in a plastic outfit, killed his wife, then put the cape and things in the refugee parcel. Having done that, he plays the part of the distressed husband. The only trouble with that pretty picture is how he made the weapon fly through the air into a ditch 4 miles away. It just doesn't work. And would he have had the courage to go back in there, playing the distressed husband, knowing that Mad Janie was about? If he did know.
Were there any fingerprints?
Not a one. And the blood on the gloves and on the length of the cable are of the same blood group, which was Stella Rhodes.
Nobody knows that you found the weapon, or when you found it.
Nobody outside my squad, and yourself. I think I'd better send someone round to Fielding and get a full statement, lies or not.
May I suggest something, Rigby?
By all means, sir.
Speak to Rhodes first. Ask him about the briefcase. As an opening, I mean.
And you'll stay, Mr. Smiley?
By all means.
What motive would Fielding have had?
To lie or to kill?
Both.
I wish I really knew.
Well, come in.
Mr. Rhodes, sir.
Oh, come and sit down, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to drag you along like this, but there are just one or two things I'm not clear on. Oh, by the way, you know Mr. Smiley, don't you?
Yes, from The Voice. We met the other day.
Mr. Smiley is helping us.
I didn't feel he was really from The Voice. You didn't quite smack of the tabernacle, Mr. Smiley. Well, Inspector, how can I help you?
This business of the briefcase with the exam papers in it.
The case I went back for.
Aye.
I was so awful about that boy. A nice boy, but he was very stupid. I suppose he found the case in Fielding's hall and opened it and copied the answers. He could have only got that mark by cheating. I should have locked it, of course.
What else was in the case, Mr. Rhodes?
What else? Well, only the papers and the book with the questions and answers. Henderson's Elementary Science, it's called. Well, you've seen the case, surely. It's only a little one, about 18 by 12 inches, 6 or 7 inches across.
Well, why did you leave it behind? Was it absent-mindedness?
No, not really. I could have sworn Stella was carrying it as we stood in the hall saying goodbye. It wasn't until we got home that she asked me what I'd done with it.
She asked you what you'd done with it?
Yes. And then she threw a temper and said I expected her to remember everything. I didn't particularly want to go back. I could have rung Fielding and arranged to collect it first thing next morning. But Stella wouldn't hear of it. She made me go.
You should have told me this in the first place, Mr. Rhodes.
Well, you see, I didn't want to tell anyone about our quarrels. I wanted to keep the truth about Stella to myself. But then...
But what, Mr. Rhodes?
Well, you must suspect I killed her. And anyway, by now, a lot of people here in Caen know what Stella was really like, the truth about her.
You mean that she was not a very nice woman?
It was her father, old Mr. Glaston, who first told me. When I said I wanted to marry Stella. I never thought to hear a human being talk like that of his own child.
What did he say?
He said she was bad. Bad in her heart, that she was full of malice. He told me how she'd lead people on, all kind and warm, till they told her everything. Then she would hurt them. Say wicked things, half true, half lies. He told me a lot more besides.
Well, go on, please, Mr. Rhodes.
Of course, I didn't believe him. I just thought him a lying, jealous old man who wanted his child to wait on him until he died. So I married Stella.
And when did you discover her father was right about her?
The realization just crept up on me after a year or so, little things here and there, but no, it wasn't until we came to Caen that I knew what her father had said was really true. She hadn't been very keen on chapel before, but as soon as she got here, she went in for it in a big way. She knew it would look wrong, that it would hurt me. She wasn't sincere. A lot of people at chapel knew that. Mr. Cardew, the minister, knew. He understood why I gave up chapel. I couldn't bear to see her going there every Sunday and going down on her knees. It was all wrong. Just made a fool of your faith. All she wanted to be was different, to spite the school and me by playing the humble one.
My wife knew her at chapel, you know, Mr. Rhodes.
Yes, I know that. But your wife never gossiped. Stella said that. It made her cross, because to begin with, people liked her and they talked to her. She listened. Oh, she loved to listen. And she hoarded away every drop of gossip and dirt. She'd come home sometimes after her chapel work in the evenings and throw off her coat and laugh till I thought she'd gone mad. I've got them. I've got them all, I know, all their little secrets. Those who realized what she knew, they grew to be frightened of her.
Did she have a hold on a man called Mulligan?
Yes. Yes, how did you know that? He's got a daughter with an illegitimate kid near Leamington. Stella found out.
Well, that's how she helped the Snows when they were moving in.
She told me about that. She rang up Mulligan from the Snows and said, "Greetings from Leamington Spa, Mr. Mulligan. We need a little cooperation."
And he cooperated.
But they got her in the end, didn't they? They got their own back.
Yes, they got their own back.
Mad Janie didn't do it, Inspector. No, Janie's as soon have killed her own sister as killed Stella. They were as close as moon and stars. That's what Stella said. She looked after Janie. You see, it gave her a feeling of power to help a creature like Janie and have her fawning around. Not because she was kind, but because she was cruel.
Was she cruel to her dog?
You know about that too, do you? Oh, yes, she often beat it. But one day she beat it until it was... Oh, poor brute. She must have gone mad. Well, I couldn't take that. I took most things. I had to, you understand? I had to, unless I left Caen. But that, I shouted at her. She laughed. And then I hit her. Not hard, but hard enough. I gave her 24 hours to have the dog destroyed, or I'd tell the police. She took it to the vet the next day. I suppose she told him some tale. She could always do that.
She said it had bitten the postman, Mr. Rhodes. Not very original. And she was found out by Miss Darcy.
Ah. Well, the Darcys understood about her. Yes, Felix Darcy. Oh, that was strange. Anyway, after the business of the dog, she took to pretending I was violent, cringing away whenever I came near, holding her arm up as though I was going to hit her again. She even made out I was plotting to murder her. She went and told Mr. Cardew I was. Did you know that?
Yes, sir, we knew that.
She didn't really believe it herself. She'd laugh about it sometimes. Then at other times she'd whine and stroke me, begging me not to kill her in the long nights. It was the words that got her. The long nights. She liked the sound of them, the way an actor does.
You were going to say something about Darcy.
Darcy? Oh, yes. Yes, he knew about Stella, but not because she had anything on him. No, that was something different. She had something special there, something she'd never told me about, you see. There were nights when she'd slip out, all excited, as if going to a party. Quite late sometimes, 11 or 12 o'clock.
You didn't ask her where she was going, Mr. Rhodes?
No, I never did. You see, if I had, she'd have enjoyed not telling me or telling me a lie. I only knew she was going to meet somebody she had on the hook. Darcy must have known who it was. She said he did, but he couldn't tell. She liked that. Well, that was all I ever knew. Have you any idea who killed her? You know I didn't, don't you?
Yes, I think I know that, sir.
But you don't know who killed her. You don't know yet.
I think we know who killed her, Ed. I think we do now.
What the hell do you want with me again, Smiley? I thought you'd gone back to London.
No, I didn't go back after all. Something cropped up. Here, I mean.
You had to do some more of your wretched little spying, did you?
No, not spying, Fielding. Talking. Talking to Rhodes.
Yes, I heard the police had pulled him in.
Not pulled him in, Fielding. They've just been getting his story.
Well, thank you for telling me, Smiley. It's most interesting, but you needn't have bothered. I'm not concerned any longer with Rhodes or any of this dreadful, sordid business. At the end of this half, I leave Caen for good. Wash my hands of the place. Goodbye, Smiley.
The story you told me yesterday when I came and saw you about cheating for Tim Perkins, how you took the paper from the case and altered it.
Yes?
It isn't true. They've examined it, and it isn't true. The writing was all one person's, the boy's. If anyone cheated, it must have been Tim Perkins himself.
My dear Smiley, you can't expect me to believe that. These policemen are practically moronic. And what does it matter? Tim is dead, isn't he? Rhodes killed him. Look, Smiley, I've things to do. I have to go to London tomorrow. Do you know why? I'm seeing a headmaster about a job. I've no pension when I leave here, you know. I have to go on working. I shall have to teach at a crammer's, a sort of breaker's yard for old dons. Don't you feel sorry for me? Isn't it a nice sensation to feel pity for an old fake like me?
Of course, it doesn't necessarily signify anything. I mean, you could be protecting the boy, couldn't you? By lying for him, even though he's dead, for his honor, so to speak. Is that the explanation?
I've been playing to an empty house here at Caen, you know, Smiley. They won't remember me for more than a half or two. What a mess I've made of life. That's all there is to it.
You've got to listen, you know, Fielding. There might have been collusion between you and the boy. A situation where you were moved by the boy's distress when he brought you the papers. And on the spur of the moment, you opened the case and took out his paper and told him what to write.
I told you the truth yesterday. Make what you want of it.
I'm trying to help, Fielding. I beg you to believe me, I'm trying to help. I don't want there to be more trouble than need be, more pain. I want to get it straight before Rigby comes. It matters terribly about the briefcase. Everything hangs on whether you really saw inside it and whether Perkins did. Don't you see that?
Sit down, Smiley. What are you trying to say?
If it was Perkins who cheated after all, if it was only the boy who opened the case and not you, then they'll want to know the answer to a very important question. They'll want to know how you knew what was inside it.
What was inside it? The plastic cape, the gloves, the galoshes, the piece of cable. I saw them. They have to believe that. They were the things, even if that police sergeant hasn't been able to find them.
Oh, don't be so silly, Fielding. Everything's been found. It was all in a refugee parcel. All but one thing.
Well, Rhodes had every opportunity to do that, put things into one of Stella's parcels afterwards.
Well, let's start from the other end. Suppose it was you who killed Stella Rhodes. Suppose you had a reason, a terribly good reason. Suppose you went ahead of Rhodes after giving him the case that night, overtaking him by bicycle. Suppose Janie saw you, like she said, riding on the wind. Then, Fielding, if that were really so, none of those things were ever in the case. You must have made it up, all of it. Of course, later, when the exam results came out, you realized that Perkins had cheated. Then you knew he had seen inside the case, had seen that it contained nothing but the exam papers. And he could have told the police that. That would explain why you had to kill the boy.
I hear you.
Because you did kill him, didn't you? You waited for him at the bottom of that hill. Twice a week he came down it at the same time on his way to his music lesson. You must have stopped him and then hit him with a stone. It looked like an accident. Looked as if he'd fallen off his bicycle. Poor Tim Perkins. That was a terrible thing to do, Fielding. And it nearly broke you, didn't it?
Shut up, for God's sake! Shut up! And why should I have killed Stella Rhodes? What was the reason you spoke of?
Oh, I think it was like this, but one thing for certain first. When you were convicted, the RAF boy, in the north of England, the magistrate who convicted you was a Mr. Glaston, Stella's father. So she knew about that. It was the sort of information she would hoard and use. Rhodes told us the truth about her. She was dreadful, wasn't she? Evil, Rhodes called her. Really evil.
Go on, Smiley.
She came and told you what she knew. That was all. But she had you on the hook, as Rhodes called it. You spoke to Darcy about her. Darcy knew of your conviction, and he suggested you played along with her to discover what she really wanted. So she summoned you to meetings at absurd times and places, in woods and disused churches, at night mostly. And she wanted nothing from you but your will. She made you listen to her boasts and her mad intrigues, made you fawn and cringe. At least, I believe it was like that. Although she also had the power to stop you getting another job, and she tormented you with that. You planned to kill her, Fielding. And then on the night when the case was left behind, you saw your chance, and you took it.
Did I? Did I? And how did I know Rhodes was coming back for the case that night?
It was part of Stella's little game. She left it behind purposely, and she arranged that you were to visit her after Rhodes had collected the case. She made him go back for the case. Then she sat there, waiting for you, Fielding. It was a perfect opportunity. There was only the slight risk that Rhodes might have recalled you riding past him. But bicycles are common in Caen, and with a plastic cape on, you might have been anybody.
Sheer fantasy, Smiley. I saw what was in that briefcase. I told you Rhodes must have done it. Of course, you're quite right about her blackmailing me. But she did many worse things to other people, and not least to Rhodes himself.
They know Rhodes didn't do it, Fielding. The point was that she could have stopped you getting any job in any school. And I think she would have done. Or if she'd let you obtain a job, then she would have still had you on the hook.
How do they know Rhodes didn't do it? How can they know? He's got no alibi.
Why should he have made all the bother with the case? Why didn't he keep the case with him all the time? To do what he did do with it doesn't make sense. But never mind. If he did leave the case behind, so he had a chance to put on his killing outfit without hurry, without Stella suspecting, then he did have a sort of alibi. But actions like that don't make sense, Fielding.
Why not? How do you know? How do you know it wasn't Rhodes?
I'll tell you. 5 minutes after discovering the body, Rhodes was with Darcy. From then on, for the next 48 hours, he was under constant supervision. Perhaps you didn't know this, Fielding. But next morning, the police found the murder weapon where you dropped it that night, 4 miles down the road in a ditch. Rhodes couldn't have got it there, could he? In 5 minutes.
No, of course not. Bad mistake, wasn't it, Smiley?
Well, why didn't you throw the cable in the canal, where it would never have been found? Did you so much want to incriminate Rhodes?
It would have been poetic justice. It was Rhodes who brought the frightful woman here to Caen because he nursed a miserable little ambition. He wanted to be one of us, the stupid oaf. So he let her loose on Caen and on me in particular. Didn't he guess what she was up to, what she was really like?
Rhodes knew. He knew all there was to know about her. He suffered because of her, but he never murdered her.
No, I did that. She got her just deserts. And you know, Smiley, if I hadn't done it, somebody else would, sooner or later. She'd have tormented some other poor devil. That's what she liked about it, of course. I rang the bell that night, and she came to the door, full of herself, ready to put me through her catechism. And then she saw that I was going to kill her. For a moment, she showed fear. For a fraction of a second only. She made a mouth as if to scream, but she didn't utter a sound. Then, just as I was about to strike her down, she looked up at me, and there was no surprise in her eyes. I never thought I would make a murderer, you know, Smiley. Perhaps Stella Rhodes would have made one out of any man. I imagine Rigby is on his way?
Yes, he should be here soon.
How very civilized this all is. I suppose she'd have let me get the job at that awful Crammers just to keep tracks on me. She'd never have let go of me. She loathed me and everything I stood for too much to let me slip out of her life. Oh, those meetings, I can't describe them. It wouldn't be decent. But I shall never forget them. And I shall have plenty of opportunity to remember them, shan't I? Could you have stood her treatment, Smiley? Surely it was as bad as any treatment by a secret police. The sudden grab, the smooth release, and then the sudden grab again. No end to it. Don't you see I had to kill her?
No, Fielding, no. Because I think of what followed. Tim Perkins. How old was he? 17. And he cheated probably for the first time in his life. And paid for it with his life.
I try to forget that. To kill the thing you love. God help me. And now True will answer the door and say, "Good evening, Mr. Rigby. What can I do for you?"
Oh, good evening, Mr. Rigby. What can I do for you at this time of evening?
Just a few minutes, please, Miss Truebody.
I think you have somebody with him, Mr. Smiley.
Yes, I know. Is this the door?
Yes, but...
Good evening, Inspector.
I I have a warrant for your arrest, Mr. Fielding, on the charge of murdering Mr. Stella Road on the night of February the 16th.
I know, Inspector.
Oh, Mr. Fielding, you can't let them say such things.
Poor True. The Inspector's quite right. On the night of the 16th, I killed Stella Road.
No, you're just saying that, Mr. Fielding. You couldn't murder anybody, not you, Mr. Fielding.
I never thought I could either, True, but she made me a murderer, you know. And then I had to go on.
Go on, I don't understand. Oh, no. No, not Tim, not Tim. You loved him. I saw him off that night. I told him to be careful.
Come on, for heaven's sake, let's get this over with.
I must warn you that anything you say may be used in evidence.
It always has been, Inspector. Goodbye, Smiley. I'm sorry I'm not a patch on my brother.
Goodbye, Fielding.
You know, they'll never be able to live this down at Caen. Things will never be quite the same again here. That is something to be remembered by, isn't it? Quite something.
Patrick Barr played Fielding, and David Bird, George Smiley, in Frederick Radnam's adaptation of A Murder of Quality, the novel by John le Carre. Peter Williams played Inspector Rigby, and Joan Sanderson, Miss Brimley. Michael Spice was Road, Pauline Letts, Miss Truebody, Brian Hewlett, Perkins, Dennis Hawthorne, Darcy, Delia Payton, Dorothy Darcy, Maureen Beck, Mad Jady, Elizabeth Cassie, Jill, Claire Davenport and Edward Dewsbury, Shane and Charles Hecht, and Jill Carey and John Pullen, Anne and Simon Snow. A Murder of Quality was produced by David Geary.
Murder at the Savoy, the shocking sixth novel in the Martin Beck mystery series by the internationally renowned crime-writing duo by Mai Shoal, and Pawolu finds Beck investigating a brutal assassination. When Victor Palmgren, a powerful Swedish industrialist, is shot during his after-dinner speech in the luxurious Hotel Savoy, it sends a shiver down the spine of the international money markets and terrifies the tiny town of Malmö. No one in the restaurant can identify the gunman, and local police are sheepishly baffled. That's when Beck takes over the scene and quickly picks through Palmgren's background.
It's a swelteringly hot evening in Malmö, southern Sweden.
Malmö is closer to Rome than to the midnight sun, and the Danish coast can be seen on the horizon.
And in 1969, the only way to get to Denmark from Malmö is by plane, or ferry, or hydrofoil.
The dining room of the Savoy Hotel,
one of the most famous in Europe,
is quiet, and the few tables are mostly occupied by people sitting alone.
But there's a table for 7 in the corner near the open windows, and the host, Victor Palmgren, a tall, impressive man with iron grey hair, wearing an extremely expensive suit, stands up to speak.
First of all, I must thank you for joining me on this beautiful evening. I can't think of anything more delightful than dining with my wife and my very dear friends and colleagues. Now, before we raise our glasses to our new enterprise, I'd particularly like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Jensen, who've come from Copenhagen to be with us.
And while Victor Palmgren is addressing his dinner guests, a man walks into the dining room, takes a gun from beneath his jacket, and shoots him in the head. Just an ordinary, stiflingly hot evening in the Savoy Hotel.
In Malmö, southern Sweden.
So he's not dead then?
Near as, damn it. He's in a coma in the hospital with one of our men sitting by him with a tape recorder.
And the gunman just walked away?
Walked right away and jumped out of the window.
No one stopped him?
A shock, I suppose. All they could say was he stepped over the window box and jumped down onto the pavement and disappeared.
Per Månsson is the most senior detective in Malmö.
By rights, the investigation should be his.
But Victor Palmgren, who's dying in hospital, is rich and influential, with a finger in all sorts of international pies. His death has opened a big can of worms, and more than one important politician is involved.
So the powers that be have decided that the person in charge of the investigation shouldn't be a provincial detective in Malmö. He should be a chief inspector in the National Murder Squad.
A chief inspector who's based in Stockholm.
Obviously, it should be Martin Beck.
Is it possible for someone to live with a bullet in his head?
Well, it's happened before, Martin.
And no one in the dining room or outside can tell you anything?
No, they can't.
And you checked all the trains, ferries, hydrofoils, planes?
There's no leads at all. He could be in Sweden or Denmark or anywhere in the world for all we know. It's going to be a tedious slog. I'm sorry you've got to be involved.
That's the idea of the new chief of police.
New?
Yes. And he's not what you call a career policeman. It's a political appointment. He used to run a waterworks or something.
Has he any practical experience at all?
Not so you'd notice.
Oh, God.
Anyway, he tells me it's all very sensitive and there are strong vested interests in certain operations.
Which interests? Which operations?
He couldn't say. Anyway, I'll be down in Malmö tomorrow. I'll see you then.
Bon voyage.
I got you then. So you're going down to Malmö then, Martin?
I thought nothing ever happened there.
I'm afraid you're wrong, Åsa.
The Victor Palmgren shooting? Am I right?
Got it in one.
Well, can't Inspector Maundsen look after it in Malmö?
Not according to the chief. It's stirred up all sorts of important stuff. He wants us to look into it.
Oh, sod it. That's most of the summer gone west.
Oh, not again. When will we ever get a proper family holiday?
Oh, never mind, Gun. It'll get better one day.
Oh, I believe it when it happens.
Give us some more whiskey, Martin. Let's enjoy ourselves while we can.
I think we should drink to Martin's new flat.
Oh, here, here.
OK, Martin's new flat.
Martin's new flat.
Cheers.
This telephone call has interrupted Martin Beck's first attempt at entertaining in his new flat in Stockholm's Old Town.
After 18 years of marriage, he's separated from his wife, and they're both much happier as a result. His guests are his friends in the police force, Åsa Torell of the Vice Squad, and Detective Inspector Colbert and his wife Gun.
Åsa is at last looking healthy and relaxed, but it's taken her a long time to get over the murder of her fiancé a couple of years ago on a Stockholm bus. After his death, she'd trained at the police academy, and now she's with the Vice Squad.
Colbert is Beck's closest friend, and despite an ugly knife wound in the stomach about a year earlier, is still as fat as ever with an enormous appetite.
Colbert and Åsa will remain in Stockholm while Martin Beck goes down to Malmö.
Oh, bloody hell, it's hot.
Welcome to Malmö, Martin. Good to see you.
Thanks. So, Palmgren died after all?
Ah, yes.
That'll set the cat among the pigeons. Did he manage to say anything?
Said he got a good look at the man who shot him, but hadn't a clue who he was, and then he died.
Aren't there any more leads?
A hostess on the 9 o'clock hydrofoil to Copenhagen noticed a man who insisted on standing on the deck at the beginning of the crossing.
That's dangerous.
Apparently he came back down after a few minutes, but it still would have given him time to throw something overboard. And she said she thought he might have been carrying a black box, but she couldn't swear to it.
Is there any way of tracing this man?
Afraid not. Anyway, he could just have been feeling a bit seasick, and she wasn't at all sure about the box.
Anything else?
We're trying to get hold of a journalist called Edvardsson, who was sitting near Palmgren's table. Now, he was the only one of the hotel guests who seemed to have noticed anything, and he was pretty drunk. But he's the most important witness so far.
OK. And who exactly was at Palmgren's table?
His wife, Charlotte, the vice president of his Malmö company, that's Mats Linda, a Danish couple, the Jensens, who've gone back to Copenhagen, and his Stockholm manager, Broberg, with his secretary, Helena Hansson, and they've gone back too.
How soon do you think we can talk to Mrs. Palmgren?
This afternoon, probably. Do you want to do it?
No, you know more about Palmgren than I do. We'll get Colbert and Larsson to follow up the couple in Stockholm, and I'll go and talk to this witness, Edvardsson.
I'm not sorry Palmgren's dead, you know.
Why do you say that? Did you know him?
Not personally, but by all accounts he was an arrogant bastard.
What exactly did you see? You were at the next table, so you must have had a good look at the gunman.
Oh, not really. I didn't notice him when he came in. He took off very quickly and just got out of the window.
You must have noticed something.
Well, he was wearing dark clothes, and I got the impression he was 30, 40, 50. Not a young man, anyway.
Is that it?
Yes.
Did you recognise any of Palmgren's guests?
His right-hand man, Mats Linda, and Palmgren's wife. She used to be a Miss Sweden. And a couple were speaking Danish, and the other two Just looked like employees.
Could you hear anything?
You mean, was I eavesdropping?
If you like.
Palmgren and the Dane were talking about Rhodesia. I've heard he's got a finger in a lot of shady deals over there. The women were talking about shopping and plastic surgery. I think that's all.
All right, well, what else do you know about Palmgren?
Oh, he's made a lot of money. He's very, very influential. And he's a shit.
Did you get a good look at the gun?
Not really. It looked fairly long and narrow to me. Like with a kind of roller thing.
A revolving chamber.
And that's about it. Do you know what Palmgren was up to?
He did a lot of business abroad and had a lot of property in Stockholm. I can't say I know any more than that.
And while Martin Beck is drinking cold beer, Inspector Maundsen is standing at the gate of Victor Palmgren's mansion. Instead of ringing the bell, he decides to go to the back of the house.
And there he sees Charlotte Palmgren, lying naked by a kidney-shaped swimming pool.
A man wearing Bermuda shorts comes out of the house carrying 2 tall glasses. He's very tanned with film-star good looks. Maundsen recognises him immediately.
It's Mats Linder, Victor Palmgren's second in command.
At last. Thank you.
Is it too sour?
No, it's okay. Aren't we terrible?
I don't care.
Take those stupid trousers off, will you?
Embarrassed, Maundsen leaves his place among the peonies and walks back to the main gate and rings the bell.
Eventually he finds himself in a colossal drawing room, sitting opposite a fully dressed Charlotte Palmgren.
And listening to the sound of Mats Linder's Jaguar driving away.
I can't offer you anything special. Just a drink, perhaps?
Thank you, but no.
I've sent the servants away. I think it's better I'm alone for a bit.
I understand. I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I'm afraid I have to ask you if you noticed anything at all about the gunman, Mrs. Palmgren.
It all happened horribly fast. He just looked terribly ordinary.
Would you say he looked nervous? Was he desperate?
I don't know. He looked completely unmemorable, quite common.
Common?
Nobody we'd ever associate with, I mean.
You saw the weapon?
It was some kind of revolver, quite long, like they use in westerns.
I wonder, do you live here all the time, Mrs. Palmgren?
When we're in Malmö, of course. But we have a house in Portugal and an apartment in Stockholm and a cottage in the archipelago.
Do you know anything about why the dinner had been arranged?
No, not really. There'd been a business meeting in the afternoon, I believe. But I never have anything to do with the business.
Did you love your husband?
Love sounds so silly, doesn't it?
You knew all the people at the dinner, didn't you?
I've seen them now and then. They were mostly employees. Actually, I've never met Brubear's secretary before. I'm not friends with any of them.
Not with Mr. Linder? He lives in Malmö.
Not really. Only through my husband.
I see.
Beck here.
How's it going?
Well, it's hard to say, Chief. I've only just started. It's shockingly hot, though.
Never mind that. Look, Beck, I'm under a lot of pressure from above about this affair. It's the Attorney General, and now it's the Foreign Office. This thing could really damage Sweden's reputation. It's got to be cleared up quickly.
How exactly are we supposed to do that?
Listen, Beck, this is no ordinary murder.
Well, there aren't any ordinary murders, but tell me more. What do you think Palmgren was involved in?
International big business. I believe he had dealings with certain countries we have sensitive relations with.
Such as?
Rhodesia, South Africa, Biafra, Nigeria, Angola, Mozambique. Remember, it's difficult for us to maintain normal contacts with all these nations.
Angola and Mozambique aren't nations.
Don't get hung up on details.
So what sort of dealings exactly?
Weapons, money, property. He did a lot of business out of Portugal, and he seems to own half of Stockholm.
So he made a lot of money. What does the Inland Revenue have to say?
His operations in Sweden have been handled impeccably. There's a lot we just don't know.
I see.
He's been blacklisted by several groups, violent groups, who oppose Sweden's involvement with the countries I've just mentioned.
And?
He's received death threats before now. My bosses think this could be a political killing.
Could be.
Listen, this is incredibly sensitive, Beck. If he's found out to be dealing with corrupt regimes, the repercussions could be catastrophic for Sweden. It could ruin the careers of certain very important people, to say nothing of our reputation abroad.
I see.
If you get this tied up quickly, it'll be a feather in your cap.
I don't have a cap.
It's not a joke. This murder's stirred up shit in some very high places.
After a night of heavy and dreamless sleep, Martin Beck wakes up with a general sense of well-being.
His sensitive stomach is much better since he's been living alone, and he suspects that his digestive troubles have been psychosomatic all along.
He feels even more cheerful when an unexpected witness comes into the Malmö office later that morning.
What exactly did you see last Wednesday, Mrs. Grunion?
I'd been shopping in Copenhagen and then had coffee with a friend. So about 9 o'clock I was standing opposite the Savoy, waiting to cross the road, when I saw someone jump out of the dining room window. I thought he was running away without paying the bill.
I see. Where did he go after that?
He got a bicycle from the rack outside the hotel and rode away towards the harbour. Then I couldn't see him anymore.
What did he look like?
He was about 40, going bald with dark hair. A brown suit, yellow shirt, thin, nothing special, quite tall. I can't think of anything else, really.
Do you remember anything about the bicycle?
It was just ordinary. Oh, one thing.
Yes?
Before he got on the bicycle, he took something out of his jacket and put it in a cardboard box on the back.
You see what it was?
No, but it was long, like a shoebox.
And the next person to be questioned is Mats Linder, Victor Palmgren's right-hand man and his wife's lover.
He receives them in his impressive office with a spectacular view of the docks.
Linder is very confident and sits with his back to a huge photograph of fishing boats in stormy seas.
There's a shocking contrast between the struggle to catch a living from the sea and the peace and quiet of the air-conditioned office.
The contrast is striking, but probably not intentional.
There have to be limits to cynicism.
Has the murderer been apprehended?
No.
Then how can I help?
Tell me, Mr. Linder, did Victor Palmgren have any enemies?
Far too many. Business today is tough. I'm afraid there's no room for philanthropy or sentimentality. But...
Yes.
In the business world, we don't need to shoot each other to settle old scores.
Do you have any idea who killed Mr. Palmgren?
No. I didn't really see him properly. I was sitting beside Victor, and the man came up behind us. The shot wasn't very loud, and it didn't seem very frightening. When Victor fell forward, I stood up and leaned over him, and when I turned round, the gunman had gone.
Perhaps I didn't make myself clear. What I meant was, have you any idea what kind of person might be involved?
A lunatic. Someone who's mentally ill.
From what I gather, Mr. Palmgren did a lot of business abroad.
Yes. We import and export fish for the canning industry.
Now he's died, who'll inherit the company?
His wife, I suppose. There aren't any children.
Will you be Mr. Palmgren's successor?
I don't know. I wouldn't claim to have enough experience.
Has Mr. Brubear been with the business longer than you?
He's been with Victor 15 years and I've been here 5. He's vice president of the Stockholm Property Company and he's in charge of the stock activities.
And yet you have the more privileged position, don't you? Have you had any disagreements with him?
I'm afraid that's strictly private.
Don't you think he's loyal to the firm?
I don't want to answer that question.
Well, one of my colleagues in Stockholm will be talking to him about that. And about you.
I wonder, Mr. Linder, what kind of relationship do you have with Mrs. Palmgren?
That's private.
I agree. But I'd still like you to answer the question.
What question?
Are you having an affair with Mrs. Palmgren?
Yes.
A love affair?
It's a sexual relationship. I sleep with her sometimes. Surely even a policeman can understand that.
How long has your relationship gone on?
2 years.
Did Victor Palmgren know about it?
No. But he was broad-minded. The marriage was a practical arrangement, not an emotional commitment.
And when did you last see her?
2 hours ago.
How is she in bed?
Are you out of your mind?
He's a bright lad. Sharp enough to tell the truth when he knows a lie could be exposed. You can bet Palmgren had a lot of use for him.
He's obviously had a good teacher.
But is he bright enough not to have people shot?
Who knows? I'm getting Colbert to interview Brubear and his secretary, Helena Hansson, in Stockholm. Maybe he'll manage to find out something from them.
Detective Inspector Colbert finds the job he's been given deeply depressing.
Sweating in the heat, he drives out to Victor Palmgren's housing project, which is managed by Brubear.
But there's no one there except a bad-tempered and unhelpful caretaker who directs him to Brubear's office back in the centre.
Who are you? What do you want?
Sorry, police. The name's Colbert. This is Mr. Brubear's office.
Yes?
I wonder if we could have a word.
Of course. How can I help?
I'm afraid we've just got a few more questions about Mr. Palmgren's death, Miss Hansson.
I'm not Miss Hansson. My name's Sarah Maubert.
Forgive me, I thought you were Mr. Brubear's secretary.
I am Mr. Brubear's secretary, but I'm not called Hansson, and I'm afraid I don't know anything about Mr. Palmgren's death.
So you weren't in Malmö last Wednesday when Victor Palmgren was shot?
No.
I was told Mr. Brubear was in Malmö with his secretary.
Well, it wasn't me. I never go along on his trips.
Do you know who this Helena Hansson could be? Is she another employee?
No, I've never heard of her. I suppose she could be one of these travelling secretaries.
I see. I wonder, is Mr. Brubear here at the moment?
No, he came in for about 10 minutes this morning and then went to the bank. I think he must have gone home.
His home on Liedinger?
Yes, but if he's not there, it'll be empty.
Why?
Because his wife and daughter went to Switzerland last Friday. I booked their tickets. It all happened very quickly, just after Mr. Palmgren died.
Does he normally work from here?
Yes, most of the time.
May I see his office?
Of course.
Tell me, Miss Maubert, is this suitcase usually here?
No, I've never seen it before. I think Mr. Brubear must have left it in here over the weekend. I noticed it when I came in on Monday, and he and I are the only people who've got keys to the office.
And you think he's probably at home on Liedinger?
Oh, yes. Where else would he be?
The large, expensive houses on Liedinger are light years away from the decrepit estate Colbert had visited earlier.
Nobody here is unlucky enough to be milked for rent by an absentee landlord or his manager.
Brubear's house seems closed up and completely dead. The blinds are drawn and the garage is empty. Colbert rings the bell and pounds on the door, but no one responds.
He goes to the large and fashionable house next door. A cool, unhelpful blonde woman answers.
We're not in the habit of spying on our neighbours. I don't know Mr. Brubear and I can't help you.
Oh, that's too bad.
Perhaps for you, but not for me.
As Colbert turns away, he realises she reminds him of someone, but he can't think who it is.
He drives to the address Helena Hansson gave the Malmö police after the murder, but he has no luck there either. Eventually, he drives back home.
Oh, this bloody job. A bunch of conniving bastards seem to be running this country.
What happened today, then?
I had to go out to this shitty housing estate looking for a character called Brubear.
What's so shitty about it?
Jerry-built and badly maintained. I pity the poor buggers who live there, especially in this heat.
What's it to do with this Brubear?
Well, he's supposed to run it, but he obviously hadn't been near it for ages. There was just a bad-tempered caretaker who clearly didn't give a damn about anything except collecting rents.
Who owns it?
Victor Palmgren built it, so I suppose it's his wife's now.
Why does it upset you so much?
Well, it's just been slapped together to make a profit from the poor sods who have to live there. It's typical of this country. Everything's being polluted by property speculators and profiteers.
Did you find this Brubear?
Not there, and not at his office. A proper wild goose chase.
If it's all getting you down, why didn't you just hand in your notice? We'll manage okay.
It's not that easy.
You worry too much, that's your trouble. You're too good a policeman.
It's the only thing I know how to do.
Oh, I wish you'd take a break sometimes.
Maybe. Good.
Yes.
Do you know what a travelling secretary is?
I think it's some kind of call girl who goes around with her nightie, toothbrush and contraceptive pills in a briefcase. Available for men who are too lazy to pick someone up while they're away on business.
A high-class prostitute?
Right.
Oh.
When Colbert goes into the police station, the detective who's there is the last person he wants to talk to, Gunvald Larsson.
Colbert detests Larsson, who, in his opinion, is a big, dumb, snobbish thug, but he fills him in on the Palmgren case.
And that's what you've been doing?
Yep. And I've drawn a blank.
Sod Martin back. I don't want anything to do with the Palmgren murder.
Don't worry, Larsson. Nobody can make you do anything you don't want to.
Look, we've got fights and robberies and drugs, and everyone seems to be on holiday except you and me. Now bloody Beck wants us on this case, and on top of all that, we're in a heat wave.
Okay, you don't have to actually do anything, but I'd be grateful for some help, some advice. Any ideas about Brubert or his so-called secretary, Helena? I've hit a brick wall.
Well, as far as I can see, if you want to trace this, what does she call herself, secretary, I think you better get on to Orsa. She's in the Vice Squad. I bet she knows how to find her.
Good idea, thanks.
But did you say the blonde woman on Leadinger was very obstructive?
Unhelpful's not the word.
And you're absolutely sure about her address?
Yes, she's Brubert's next-door neighbour.
Interesting. OK, you get hold of Orsa and I'll go down to Leadinger for you.
Thanks.
Larsson drives straight to Leadinger. He looks grim even though he's smiling, and he chuckles to himself with satisfaction.
He glances at Brubert's deserted house, then he goes next door.
The same cool blonde who dismissed Colbert so ignominiously answers.
What the hell are you doing here?
Ah, true love never dies, sister.
Did you send that fat guy here?
As a matter of fact, no, but I've come for the same reason. Are you going to let me in, or do I have to kick down the door?
I haven't seen you for 10 years and you're still as vile as you were when we were little.
So are you.
Father'd turn in his grave if he could see you now. What are you? Still a constable?
First assistant detective.
What an achievement.
Well, achievement or not, you're going to tell me everything you know about Brubert and his boss, Victor Palmgren.
Make me. I don't spy on my neighbours.
I don't believe you. You were always nosy, even as a little girl.
So, I can't tell you what I don't know.
Can't you?
No, I can't. And I won't.
OK, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you don't spill the beans, I'm going to go round to every house, to all your neighbours, with a local constable in uniform, and I'm going to tell them I'm your brother and I'm only a policeman. That'll improve your social standing, won't it?
You wouldn't.
And I'm going to say that you're such a bloody fool that I have to ask other people for help. And if that doesn't work, I'm taking you down the station and charging you with obstructing the course of justice.
You really would do that, wouldn't you?
Try me. Well?
I think they've all gone away.
What do you mean?
Brubert's wife and daughter left last Friday. He sold her car. I think he's just sold the house.
You think?
A couple were walking round examining everything with a man who looked like a lawyer. Brubert was with them. I couldn't help hearing what they said.
And?
I heard them say quick deals are always the best, and Brubert gave them some keys. Then they all left.
What does Brubert look like?
Coarse and fat. He's got red hair and squinty blue eyes. Loathsome, actually. And brutal. Like a pig.
Did you ever meet his boss, Victor Palmgren?
Only briefly. At one of Brubert's parties.
And what did you make of him and Brubert?
Arrogant. Powerful. Frightening.
And?
Not like us. I mean, they've got a lot of money, but they've got no style.
What else?
Ruthless. They tread on people. Ambitious, but they'll never really be accepted. They're dangerous. If I were you, I wouldn't get involved in anything to do with them.
I see. I think you've been more helpful than you realise.
I wouldn't have said anything if you hadn't tried blackmail. Don't come round here again. If I don't see you for the next 10 years, it'll be too soon.
Where exactly are we going, Orsa?
To Helena Hansson's apartment.
That was fast work.
Never underestimate the Vice Squad's records. Tell me, why do we need to find her?
She witnessed the murder. Beck wants her questioned again.
How's he doing in Malmö? I thought he seemed very cagey at dinner in their new flat the other night.
I'm not surprised. The whole affair stinks of corruption. Palmgren seems to be linked with all sorts of important people, dodgy people. Whatever he's been up to, big business, arms dealing, money laundering, it's scaring the shit out of some very powerful people.
Helena's not been charged with anything, has she?
No, I have a feeling that she might lead us somewhere.
And Brubear? Where does he fit in?
I don't know, but he's high up in Palmgren's organisation. And incredibly shady. He seems to be converting all his assets into cash as fast as he can. There's a suitcase in his office, and it looks like he's trying to get out of the country.
Well, surely neither Brubear nor Helena would have hired a killer.
Stranger things have happened.
As you can see, you've got me out of the shower. You'll have to wait outside while I get dressed.
I don't care for this. There's not a back door, is there?
On the 4th floor? I don't think so. There isn't a fire escape. Just as well as a letterbox.
Well?
Can't see much. She's got some clothes on now and she's just put a suitcase in the hall cupboard. Hold on, she's coming to the door.
I suppose you better come in.
Thank you.
What's this all about?
As we explained, we'd like you to fill in some details about last Wednesday, Miss Hansson.
I told the police at the time. It all happened so quickly that I didn't really see anything. The man was wearing a brown suit and the gun he had looked rather long, that's all.
In what capacity were you in Malmö, Miss Hansson?
As a secretary, of course. Mr. Brubear has his regular secretary in Stockholm, but she never goes on business trips. Is there anything else?
Come off it, Helena. You're no more a secretary than I'm the Queen of Sheba.
What do you mean?
Well, my colleague may work for the murder squad, but I'm with the Vice Squad, and we've a file on you that goes back 10 years.
I have a right to go where I want with who I want.
Yes, you do, but I'm afraid you're an important witness to a murder who gave an incorrect address in your statement, so we have a warrant to search your flat. Is there anything you want to say?
No.
Do you mind if we have a look in here?
Haven't any choice, have I?
I'm afraid we'll have to open this, Miss Hansson.
Go ahead. It isn't locked.
There's an airline ticket to Zurich in here.
Anything else?
Stock certificates. Great pile of them.
They're not mine.
I didn't think they were.
Pigs.
Detective Larsson stands by the window in his office trying to find a breath of cool air.
On the surface, Stockholm doesn't look bad.
But Detective Larsson knows only too well that the surface lies.
Yes?
I need another officer to assist me in an arrest this evening.
We're ridiculously short-handed.
I don't care. It's for Chief Inspector Beck. He wants a man called Brubear brought in as soon as possible.
If it's that important, I suppose I'd better find you someone.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I want to do this absolutely by the book, and I can't manage that on my own.
Oh, I suppose I could let you have Sacreson. He usually works in the plainclothes division.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Well, that ought to be an advantage.
Just make absolutely sure he's not wearing uniform. Remember, take it nice and easy. Now, what's that in your coat pocket?
It's my gun, sir.
Well, why aren't you wearing a shoulder holster?
I couldn't find one.
Oh, Christ, put it in your waistband. No, not out here. Do it in that doorway. Now, listen. We need to arrest this guy. He's called Brubear. This is his picture. He's got red hair and a pot belly. In fact, he's a bit like a pig.
Yes, sir.
He's going to walk into this building and fetch a black suitcase. I want you to stay outside. Now, maybe he'll come by car and park right in front of the door. I just don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go inside and I want to arrest him in his office. But if by any chance he comes out with the suitcase without me, you've got to stop him driving away until I can make it out here. Understood?
Yes, sir. Is he dangerous?
I don't know. He could be.
As Larsson predicted, Brubear arrives at his office and lets himself in.
But as luck would have it, the caretaker of the building,
smelling strongly of alcohol,
arrives outside the office door and catches sight of Larsson on the landing.
What the hell are you? What are you doing here? It's none of your business. Bloody is my business. I'm the caretaker here. I'm the police. Police? Prove it.
At that moment, the door opens. Brubear comes out carrying a suitcase, takes one look at Larsson, and runs down the stairs into the street.
Here! Where's police? Stop! Stop!
Stop! Police! Come one step nearer and I'll shoot! Put that down, sir! Put that down! Don't do that!
Ceasefire! Ceasefire! Christ, sacristan! Doesn't the police academy teach you how to aim straight?
One step nearer!
But you're under arrest, sir. You're under arrest. Drop that gun. Oh, well, if you won't.
What the hell's going on?
We're making a film.
So Brubear's got a broken jaw, and he had a starting pistol.
Yep.
And his interrogation didn't turn up anything new.
I'm afraid not. And Larsson and I really went for him.
What about Helena Hansson?
She didn't say anything new either.
So if they had a hand in the murder, we haven't any proof at all.
That's about it.
Have we got any way of keeping them in custody?
Not where the money and the stocks are concerned. The problem is we jumped the gun. We should have tipped off customs and passport, and then they'd have been caught actually going out of the country with the stuff.
You think Brubear is involved in the murder?
Everything he's done since seems to have been dictated by Palmgren's death. But for all we know, the money and the stocks could be his.
Embezzlement over the years?
Possibly. Probably.
Whatever it is, Palmgren had his finger in some nasty pies, and I need to see Brubear and Hansson face to face. You better bring them down to Malmö as soon as you can.
Okay, one thing, Martin.
Yeah.
I think Åsa ought to come along too. She's the one who's been dealing with Helena.
While Brubear and Helena are being escorted to Malmö, Martin Beck makes a short visit to Copenhagen to interview Mr. Jensen, Victor Palmgren's Danish guest.
All he learns is that Jensen's air freight company has dealings with both Europe and Africa.
And that he can't give any kind of description of the gunman. All he noticed was that the gun had a long barrel and that the gunman was wearing a brown suit.
And he has absolutely no idea who might have wanted to murder Victor Palmgren.
Luckily, when Martin Beck returns to the office, the bullet that killed Victor Palmgren is lying on Mornson's desk.
It's a 2-2. And that seems strange. Who the hell tries to kill someone with a 2-2?
In America, it's a sign the murderer's a pro. He doesn't bother to use more than what's absolutely necessary.
Well, Malmö's not Chicago. But there's something peculiar about this. The gunman acted very professionally.
Yeah, he only fired one shot. If he'd been unlucky, the bullet could have hit the skull and ricocheted. He knew what he was doing.
And exactly who he was going to shoot. All the hallmarks of a hired killer.
Well, it's a 2-2, and we think he used a revolver. But we've not got much to go on unless we can find the actual gun. How many revolvers do you think there are in Malmö?
Who knows? Hundreds of illegal ones. Inherited, stolen, smuggled.
Yeah, but I suppose there are people who've actually got licenses.
Well, not many, I can tell you. And if this is part of a political murder, we're looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, but I think we better check everything locally, just in case we turn something up.
Later that afternoon, Brubear and Helena finally arrive in Malmö. Colbert and Åsa are with them.
On his lawyer's advice, Brubear refuses to add anything to the statement he made just after the murder.
But Helena sings like a bird.
This is like gold for the Vice Squad, but not much use in the murder inquiry.
It's another stiflingly hot Wednesday evening after a disappointing day.
And Palmgren's killing took place exactly a week ago.
After dinner with his friends, Martin Beck goes up to his room feeling very despondent.
Beck, what the hell are you up to?
Chief, getting ready for bed. What about you?
Listen, Beck, it was stated quite clearly that this investigation would be conducted as discreetly and efficiently as possible.
Yes.
I don't think a shooting match and a fight in the middle of Stockholm is very discreet, do you? And isn't it going a bit far to arrest two people who are possibly innocent?
Colbert brought them down to Malmö today, so we'll interview them again tomorrow, and perhaps we'll find out more then.
This affair touches some very important people right at the top. The Attorney General and the Foreign Secretary are very upset. Can you at least say that a charge is imminent?
No.
What on earth do you want me to tell them?
The truth. That there's no progress.
After a week? With our best men on the case? For God's sake, the pressure's being put on us by several foreign embassies as well as our own people. I can't help feeling you're taking this all a bit too lightly.
In that case, you're wrong. I never take murder lightly.
It's going to be like an earthquake if some of Palmgren's activities become public knowledge. The political consequences will be absolutely devastating. Do you understand?
Certainly, I understand.
You've got to do everything you can, Martin. Absolutely everything.
Okay. I'll do everything I can. Stig.
It's the first time he's called the chief superintendent by his first name.
And hopefully the last.
Hang on a minute. Orsa, come in.
You weren't sleeping, were you?
No, it's much too hot. You weren't either, obviously.
I've just got back. Scarcely had time to have a shower.
Having second thoughts about a career in the police?
Yes and no. You see so much misery. But I suppose you sometimes feel you're doing a bit of good.
Yeah, once in a while.
Bad day?
Nothing new, it's often like this.
Any ideas?
Not really. Except Palmgren was a bastard. Lots of people had good reason to hate him. The powers that be are convinced it's political. I just don't know. Anyway, enough of work. Would you like a drink?
Please, it's been quite a day.
Heard you had your hands full.
Yeah, we've hardly eaten and it's so hot. I'm dying for a drink.
Oh, here you are.
Oh, thanks.
Well.
It's going to happen sooner or later, isn't it?
There's no hurry.
Your eyes are grey. Actually.
Yours are brown.
Have you thought about this before?
Yes. Have you?
Sometimes. During the last year.
Then why not now?
Yes. Why not now?
It's been a long time.
Terribly long. Not since... What about you?
Same here. Same here.
When Orsa leaves Martin Beck's room, the sky's been light for a couple of hours.
It mightn't have got the investigation much further, but Wednesday hadn't been disappointing after all.
At 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, the situation in the operations room is at a standstill.
Martin Beck and Mornson are sitting across from each other at the large desk.
Beck is smoking, and Mornson is skimming through a very long strip of teletype.
What's that?
Well, nothing of importance. It's just a list we get from Copenhagen every few days.
What kind of list?
Well, missing persons, cars that have disappeared, and stuff they found.
Is it any use?
Well, sometimes things turn up. Most of the time they don't.
Any chance there's something about guns?
Usually at the end. Yeah, here we are. Several of them. A Swedish army pistol, 9mm Husqvarna, well, it has to be old. A Beretta Jaguar, a Boxfire Anamenius 22, 5 boxes of 7.65 ammunition.
Hang on a minute. What was that about a box?
A box originally for Anamenius 22.
Found where?
Floated ashore on the beach at Dragør in Denmark. Found by a private individual and left with the police in Dragør last Tuesday.
22 could be something for us.
The box on the bicycle?
Yes. See if you can get it over from Copenhagen.
The box arrives on the hydrofoil at 10 to 12 that day.
Opens pretty easily. Can't have been in the water very long.
5 days. Looks like it's made to hold a revolver and an extra butt.
And does it say anything on the bottom?
Couple of words. I think the first begins with a capital B and the second with capital S. Could be a name.
We'll send it over to the technical boys. See what they can make of it.
Arminius 22's a target weapon. I'm pretty sure people use it for practice. I wonder if it's worth a visit to your local gun club.
Arminius 22, it's an unusual make.
Can you tell us anything about them?
Never used them myself, but we've got 2 or 3 guys in the club who do have them. They could tell you more than I can.
Any of them here at the moment?
I don't think so, no.
Don't suppose you've got any Arminius 22 owners with the initials BS?
I can't keep track of everyone, but if you wait a minute, I'll look them up in the office, see if I can find some phone numbers.
Bit of a long shot, isn't it?
You never know.
Shouldn't we be leaning on Brubear and Linda? They're the ones who can lead us to the big boys.
Linda's en route for Johannesburg and can't be contacted, and Brubear's lawyer won't let him talk.
These are the only 3 names I can find. Tommy Lind, Kenneth Axelsson, Bertil Svensson. Sorry, I don't have any contact numbers.
That's okay. Did you say Bertil Svensson?
That's right.
BS on the box.
Right. Did you see Bertil Svensson last week at all?
As a matter of fact, yeah, he was here last Wednesday afternoon. He stayed till the evening.
You know anything about him?
Bloody good shot. Practices a lot.
You know what he does? Where he lives?
He works at Cockoom's factory, I think. Some kind of lousy job. I think he's divorced. Don't have an address for him, I'm afraid. I've just been in touch with Cockoom's. Bertil Svensson's a caretaker there.
Did you get his address?
Yes, but apparently he's on holiday. He lives on his own down here, and his ex-wife lives in Stockholm. No one's seen him for a bit.
So, what do we do now?
I think we better bring him in.
Well, how should we play it?
I don't think we can take any chances. We know he's a first-class marksman, and for all we know, he's got a whole arsenal in his apartment.
And we don't want to rerun of Brubear's arrest in Stockholm, do we?
Absolutely not.
Well, I suggest we watch his apartment till we're sure he's there, and I'll have a full backup team ready outside.
And I guess we'd better fetch him out ourselves.
What a bloody dump. It's absolutely packed out. Mostly with Yugoslav immigrants.
Stinks of piss. God, this heat.
Okay. There's a couple of men round the back, aren't there?
Yes. And I put 3 more in the basement, and there's 1 in the stairwell.
Which floor is Spencer on?
The 2nd.
We've got to be very careful. We don't know what state of mind he's in, or if he's got any more guns.
Or if he's roaring drunk. I would be if I were him.
I want your men to cover Colbert and me while we go up to his flat. Our best bet is to surprise him, okay?
Okay.
Right. Let's go.
That's the one?
Yeah. Stand against the wall. He could shoot through the door. You ready?
Yep.
Open up! This is the police! If you don't come out now, we'll break the door down! Open up! Open up!
Stand back. Get ready to shoot. Now put your hands in the air. Walk out slowly.
Thank God you're here. I couldn't have held out much longer. If you hadn't have come, I'd have turned myself in.
So who paid you to kill Victor Palmgren?
Nobody.
I don't believe you. Somebody must have paid you.
Nobody paid me. I didn't do it for money.
I see. Okay. Last week at the Savoy, when exactly did you see Victor Palmgren?
I stopped at a red light and saw him through the window.
How did you know he was at the Savoy?
I didn't. I was just passing. I'd been to the rifle club and I was going home on my bike.
What about the revolver?
It was in the box on the carrier rack.
Did you know Victor Palmgren?
No.
Then how did you know it was him?
I've seen pictures of him and his wife in the newspapers. And I could see them all sitting, eating and drinking. Bloodsuckers. They don't give a damn about anyone else.
Go on.
I couldn't bear it, so I just put my bike in the bike rack, took the revolver out of the box, loaded it, stuck it in my jacket, walked into the dining room and shot him in the head. And I don't regret it. I'm not sorry.
Weren't you afraid of getting caught?
No. I just wanted to kill the pig.
Why?
I hate him. And everything he stands for.
What do you mean, everything he stands for?
Is it his politics?
Not really.
Well then?
He's ruined my life. And my family's. Have you seen how we live?
Tell me.
My wife and kids live in one room. On the charity of an old woman in Stockholm. It's going to kick them out next month. And God knows where they're going to go. I live in that shithole outside Malmö. Scarcely earn enough for the alimony and my rent.
What's this to do with Palmgren?
I worked for him for years. And then he closed the factory and kicked us out of his company housing. Job, apartment, marriage, all went at once.
Marriage?
Couldn't survive the conditions and the lack of money. We rowed all the time and I had to move out. He's ruined absolutely everything. It's all been his fault.
It's okay, Mr. Svensson. Just take your time.
I'm glad he's dead. I don't care about going to prison. I've got nothing to live for anyway. Nobody had to pay me to kill him. I hate the bastard.
What did you do after you'd shot him?
I got out of the window, got on the hydrofoil, threw the box and the revolver overboard and went to see Ava and the kids in Stockholm.
I've been wondering, had you thought about killing Palmgren before?
I suppose I must have done, but when I did it, I felt I'd had the idea for the first time. Deep down, I must have wanted him dead all along.
And how did you feel when he didn't die immediately?
Well, I was annoyed I'd made a bad job of it. Maybe I should have fired more times, but I didn't want to hurt anyone else.
What about now? How do you feel now?
I've told you. It's a good thing he's dead. I hate him. And all the bastards like him. Don't worry. I'm not going to break down again. I'm just glad you've let me explain.
I think maybe we should have a rest now.
No, I'm all right. I'm not sorry. You know. The world's better off without shits like Palmgren and his pals.
I think we've probably got enough now, Mr. Svensson. We can talk later if you really want to.
Constable, to take Mr. Svensson downstairs and see that he gets something to eat.
Goodbye, Mr. Svensson.
Goodbye, Mr. Svensson.
Goodbye, gentlemen. And thank you.
Damn. That bastard Palmgren. He got what he deserved.
And I hope for once that Svensson gets a really light sentence.
Late on Saturday night, July the 12th of this exceptionally hot Swedish summer, Martin Beck sits alone in the dining room of the Savoy Hotel. His colleagues Åsa Torell and Lennart Colbert have already gone back to Stockholm.
The food, drink and service are all excellent.
Victor Palmgren is dead, gone forever and missed by no one except a handful of international swindlers and some suspect regimes in faraway countries.
Who will soon learn to do business with Mats Linder instead of his boss.
And Mrs. Palmgren will get even richer.
Brubair will avoid arrest and Helena Hansson will be able to resume her activities in the very near future.
There only remains a caretaker, Bertil Svensson, who will be tried for second-degree or maybe first-degree murder, and then have to rot away the best years of his life in a prison cell.
Chief Inspector Martin Beck doesn't feel good at all. He pays his bill, picks up his suitcase and walks toward the railway station.
He wonders if he's going to be able to sleep on the journey, and then he remembers that Åsa Torell has promised to meet him off the train.
In Murder at the Savoy by Mai Huerval and Per Valeur. Martin Beck was played by Stephen McIntosh and Lennart Colbert by Neil Pearson. Per Månsson was played by Tom Mannion, Gunvald Larsson by Ralph Ineson, and Carolyn Pickles was his sister. Claire Corbett played Åsa Torell, Nicholas Murchie played Malm, Paul Mundell played Mats Linda, and Philippa Stanton played Charlotte Palmgren. Robert Blythe was Victor Palmgren, Joanna Brooks was Sarah Maubert, Will Howard was Eidvarson, Sally Orrock was Gund Colbert, and Hannah Wood was Helena Hansson. Brubert was played by Michael Shelford, Sacrisson by Joe Sims, and Bertil Svensson by Rick Warden. The narrators were Leslie Sharp and Nicholas Gleaves. Murder at the Savoy was dramatised for radio by Jennifer Howarth. Original music was by Elizabeth Pannell, and the director was Sarah Davis.